Hello and good evening, good day, everybody, and welcome to the 259th episode of the Ask Abhijit show. Hope everybody is doing great. Let's see who all is there on the live chat with us. Let us see. I can see Harsh Negi, Devik Shriyan, Samarth Tripathi, Der Kaiser, Soham Joshi, Soumya Dikshit, Geopolitical Dubey from Indore, uh, Slayer, Shashank Kaushik, Dhruv Durya, Macy Lagote, Anonymous Scientist, happy birthday, sir. Sonu Bhargav, Mr. Longs Chlong, Dheeraj Kamath, Rishi Sathe, Mr. 88ers, Geopolitical Debate again, Piyush Rana, Mr. Jam, Hitanshu Mehta, Sri Ramchandraya Namaha, Slayer, Shiva Darshan S, Pranay Paul from Kolkata. Who else? Siddharth Sharma, Slayer, Dipti Thale, Purushottam Pradhan, who else? Rajesh Daswani, and Yatesh Joshi, Samar Tripathi again, Nandu Lal, Vikram Kadam, Best COC bases with link, Likhit Srinath, who is wondering if this is live. Well, what can I say? Sai Sumant, Event Countdown, Rahul, Alchemist, Mystic SK, Nitin Kumar, Sahil Singh, Oju, Iklavya AI, Shiv Patel, Priyanka Javalia, Suryansh Kapil, Ashutosh Satapati, Sushant Patil, Abhinav Mishra, Bai, Mr. Diddy, YK Ko, Anshul Naik, Ajinkya Pawar, Vikash PJ, Baron Zemo McLevin from Superbad, Gaurav Gupta, Anudipta Sen, Amisha Mishra, hello, Supratim Datta, Arindam Roy, Jay Guman, Shreyash Mitra, Anant Padmanabh, Yatagiri, Soham Joshi, and so many other people. So thank you so much, all of you, for being on the live chat. And let us get going with some questions. What questions do we have? Unknown says best way to read foreign record of our society is there's a series of books by Dr. Meenakshi Jain in which she has written about what foreigners have written about India. So she's compiled all of that in a multi-volume source. So it's a set of books by Dr. Meenakshi Jain. You can check that out. It's a good source for what you're looking for. Prashant says distorted maps of India, for example, flight aware, etc. Solution means you actually rectify the problem on the ground. The world will keep on doing this. The only way if we to solve this is to change the facts on the ground. Okay, that's it. If some other country, think about it. If, let's say, Argentina says that Falkland Islands is Malvinas and it belongs to me, do we care? We only care about who actually possesses what, and that's how it should be. So Indians should develop a thicker skin. The world is gonna be like this. Okay, to solve this problem, we have to change the facts on the ground. Of course, there are issues wherein we have the facts on the ground, and still there are nations which would like to, portray things differently. For example, Israel put out a map today or yesterday in which they showed Arunachal Pradesh as part of China, even though Arunachal Pradesh is very much part of India, and that these are the facts on the ground. And yet, Israel put out a map in which Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China. So, in this case, well, there's nothing much we can do about what other nations want, but it tells you what their true feelings for us are. Okay. Purushottam says, what's the update in the Russia-Ukraine war? Big fan. Thank you, sir. Update is it's going on. Okay, after the big developments a couple of weeks ago of Operation Spiderweb and various Ukrainian long-range strikes into Russia and Russian retaliation, beyond that, it's kind of again going back to normal. So beyond that, there's nothing major. There's a Subi offensive, and there are some other offensives by Russia on the ground, but it's going as per things, the way things have been going for quite some time. So nothing major as an update. Slayer says Iran claims it shot down 2 F-35 fighter jets. For your views, I'll have to see the evidence. I've seen some evidence that doesn't really look like evidence. So I don't know. I'm gonna reserve my judgment until we find definitive evidence or nothing comes up. Rahul says Thor met Zeus, Parushara met Ram. Two thoughts, no thoughts. Backbencher Academy lover says, what's the morning routine of a geopolitical analyst? Well, morning routines are secret. A true geopolitical analyst never reveals details of their routines. You get it? Things are supposed to be kept under wraps. Vivek Singh says, Pranam ji. How do you see the Middle East geopolitics going? Is the time for hardcore Islamic nations over, with Saudi and the UAE leading the way? I think this has nothing to do with Islam or not Islam or any such thing. Okay, Middle East geopolitics. Well, we know what's happening. The Israelis did a decapitation strike on top Iranian leadership. The Iranians have responded in some way. They've launched various kinds of missiles at Tel Aviv and other places. Some of these have scored hits despite the wonderful Iron Dome system. Many of the missiles have been intercepted, and so on and so forth. This has nothing to do with Islam. If this had something to do with Islam, okay, think about it, Indians. Hello, Indians, listen up, Indians. If you think that this has something to do with Islam, let me point something out to you. Indians don't like to think, right? Let me make you think. If Israel has a problem with Islam, and they are doing this because they are against Islam, then why has Israel never done a thing against Pakistan? Israel keeps on claiming, my friends, that Iran is the global epicenter of terrorism, which is a lie. Okay, we know it. It's not true. Iran is not the global epicenter of terrorism. Iran has never done any terrorism against us. We know where the global epicenter of terrorism is. It is Pakistan. And Pakistan has nuclear weapons, which seem to be American nuclear weapons. Now the question is why, if Israel is so much anti-terrorism, why have they never done a thing against Pakistan? Ask yourselves this question, my dear friends. This has nothing to do with Islam. And it's not over for hardcore Islamic nations, etc. Things will keep changing. It looks like it was the West that forced nations like Saudi Arabia to become hardcore Islamic nations. Islamist, whatever they call it. I have no idea what these things mean, but whatever. And Saudi Arabia would actually like to go back to its more moderate version of Islam. If you look at photographs of the Arabian region, the Saudi Arabian region, from let's say the late 1800s, early 1900s, etc., you will not see women wearing black burqas and all that. So this changed because of the influence of the West. And now it's changing again because the nations are kind of, to some extent, reverting to their true way of doing things. So geopolitics in the Middle East right now, it's a mess. It looks like there is... I've been saying this could happen, that the Israelis could strike at Iranian nuclear bases and so on and so forth, which seems to be happening right now. It all depends on how Iran retaliates. Does Iran retaliate? If it doesn't retaliate, it loses all credibility, and it invites more Israeli strikes, because Israel would like to do a regime change in Iran, and the Americans would also like this very much. So then the prospect is that there could be a regime change in Iran. The current regime of the mullahs and ayatollahs goes, and a pro-US regime comes to power. Yes? Best thing in the world. Democracy, human rights, blah, blah, blah. Right, Indians? Worst thing for India. Sergeant Skyland says, I think India is going for the Su-57 deal. We'll have to wait and watch. I think we are considering it pretty seriously, but we still have to wait and watch. I think it'll be a good thing if we go for the Su-57 deal. There are many analysts who are shilling for the F-35, that overpriced flying trash can. I think the Su-57 is better as long as we get to modify it, augment it, integrate our systems into it. I think it'll be a very good deal. Right. Indian media is calling out USA pilots to hear expert opinion on AI 171. Indirectly saying pilot error to save Boeing. Will we ever get over this brown coolie behavior? No, the Indian media is full of brown coolies, okay? They need white validation, including people I know very well. They need white validation. A white guy needs to come and tell them what must have happened, and then they are like, let's take this seriously. So there is some apparent expert who comes in dressed for the occasion in a captain's costume or whatever it is, yeah. And that guy is going around saying that this was pilot error. That instead of pulling the wheels up, the guy put the flaps down, the co-pilot or something like that, and then it was too late to change anything. That's the claim the guy is making. Complete speculation. But yes, the Indian media, especially some utter brown coolies, will call people like that to spread their so-called expert opinion. So this is a deep-rooted problem in India. It is not going to change until the government of India bothers to change the education system in a proper way. It's not going to go away. So what can I say? It's unfortunate that we are in this situation. Devin Dore, thank you so much and welcome to membership. Thank you so much. Sahil Patil says ideal stockpile for India to become a superpower. Stockpile of what? Stockpile of baby powder? Johnson's baby powder? What are you talking about? You're talking about bullets, shells, missiles, helicopters? You're talking about nuclear weapons? What are you talking about? Nuclear weapons, I think, well, maybe 500. Yeah, if you're talking about nuclear weapons. But beyond that, we need a proper stockpile of delivery systems. It doesn't matter if you have 100 or 1,000 nuclear weapons, and if you don't have the means to deliver them. We need missiles of various kinds. We need a huge stockpile of missiles. Forget about the nuclear stockpile. We need a stockpile of tens of thousands of missiles of various kinds. That's what we need. Then everybody will beware of us, because we have the numerical ability to overwhelm any air defenses. We need a stockpile of tens of thousands of missiles. MK says, why call regions as states when it implies autonomy? Shouldn't we use provinces to reflect one united nation like China? We are using whatever whatever terms the British used, or did it, or are we? I think what did the British call our regions? Did they call them provinces? Maybe they did. I don't know what made India choose the term states, because it does imply autonomy, the nation state, the state. Yes, it does. We can use the word, why do we need to use English words? We can use the word prant, which is a Sanskrit term, which has none of the autonomy connotations. So if you really want to decolonize, you can use your own civilizational and linguistic terms. Use the word prant or something similar, or something that is appropriate for the region, I would say. Vidhi says, why is the Indian media's representation misinformed and boorish? Because these folks have no understanding of anything. See, I'll tell you what. Until the year 2020, we used to have so-called strategic affairs experts who would come on the Indian media, who would typically be retired armed forces personnel. And they would talk about Pakistan. And the Indian media anchors, the big superstar anchors, they have no understanding whatsoever of geopolitics. Now, in the past 2 years, they've got access to ChatGPT. So any media anchor suddenly can act like an expert and give gyan. But they are clueless. They don't have any background in this. They have zero actual background depth of understanding, of study in geopolitics. They don't understand the historical background. They don't understand the cause and effect causality. They don't understand the chronology. They'll ask ChatGPT something, it'll give you a little list of bullet points, and that's it. Yes, these are our talking points. Yes, and so on. So it's idiotic. It's half-baked. It's very shallow. These people have no real understanding of what the national interest is, deep national interest from a geopolitical, global integrated perspective. That's why it's just noise on Indian media. It's very off-putting. When is episode 2 with French Intel RAM waiting? Well, it'll come when it comes. Sahil says, why secure Nepal and Lanka if China invades Taiwan? Because these are our civilizational areas, and we cannot have the situation where somebody gets the chance to intrude into them. For example, Lanka is pretty much secure. It's on the southern part of India. It's pretty secure because there's no other nation that can come and do a land grab. But Nepal, it's between India and Chinese occupied Tibet. So we really have to secure Nepal if something happens. So you can't just keep on losing territory. We have been losing territory for the past 1,000 years. We've been losing territory piece by piece by piece by piece. We used to have our footprint all the way up to Baku, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, and all the way to Russia. We had Indians all over Central Asia, living all across Central Asia. We can still see the archaeological evidence of that. But slowly, we have been retreating all over the place, and now we have even lost Gandhar and Pakistan, so-called Pakistan. Nepal is no longer part of India, which is okay. It is still independent, and it is still okay. We've lost East Bengal, Bangladesh, and so much more. We have been just retreating. Now, if China invades Taiwan, it means that they're in an expansionist mood. We have to secure whatever we need to secure. So that's why. Um, can India's doctrine change with a new government at the center? If a new government comes at the center, everything will be 180 degrees U-turn. Okay, if it's the party that you're thinking of. So yeah, of course it can change. Nanda Kishore is trying to echo Elon Musk over here when Elon Musk was talking about Trump. So anyway, thank you, sir. uh, Geopolitical Dubey says PM Modi will travel to Cyprus. New grouping. Well, I'm not aware of this new piece of news. If he does travel to Cyprus, I welcome that. Cyprus. Cyprus is interesting. It's an interesting place. Half of Cyprus, the northern part, is occupied by Turkey. Turkish occupied Cyprus. The south of Cyprus is still, it's still autonomous. It is Cyprus historically was a Greek island. The Turks have taken over about half of the northern part of the island. It happened sometime in the 1970s. Okay, so if Prime Minister Modi goes to Cyprus, he's not going to the northern half. I assure you of that. He's going to go to the southern half of Cyprus. And India is very much on excellent terms with Greece and not with Turkey. So we'll see. We seem to have some kind of a quasi alliance kind of situation going on with Greece, which is great. It's something that's happened after 2,300 years, 2,500 years almost. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and watch. But I am not aware of this particular thing. It seems to be a new piece of news. Vivek Singh says, any impact on the BLA resistance if Iran falls? Yeah, that's a good question. What could happen? Maybe is the Balochistan Liberation Army possibly getting some support from Persia, from Iran? And what happens if Iran falls, which means there's a pro-US government that comes to power? So if a pro-US regime, puppet regime comes to power in Iran, then it's going to be very pro-Pakistan, because Pakistan is also a US vassal. Which means the two nations could get together, to the two regimes, the Pakistani dictatorship and the Iranian pro-US regime could get together and try to destroy the Balochistan Liberation Army. That's what could happen, right? Harshaya says, from the land of the great brahmacharis in Kama Sutra to Simpa capital of the world and second largest corn consumption in the world. Is it due to colonization or something else? Please explain what has gone wrong. It's because of the media exposure. It's because of what's being normalized in India. It's been happening very slowly, very subtly, very insidiously. Started with Bollywood. Historically, certain things were not part of our culture, but Bollywood has been slowly, steadily injecting that rot into our psyche, our mindset, slowly, gradually, year after year, decade after decade. It's probably started sometime in the 1970s. That's almost 50 years ago. For 50 years, they've been injecting this rot, this foreign garbage into India. Now it has gone all the way to what we call the OTT platforms and those third-rate serials that people watch as entertainment. And all of that is now seen as normal, whatever you're talking about. You know what they call in Hindi, ashlilta and all that. There's a difference between art and ashlilta. In Indian art, you can see all over temples and all. You had examples of nudity, which was normal in the old days. And now, because of the 1,000 years of foreign occupation of India, women had to cover up. So now that's the new normal. But now people want to represent the female form without clothes in a vulgar way, not in an artistic way, in a vulgar way. And that's become normal now. It's very normal, having lots of extra marital affairs and promiscuity and all of that is normal in your TV serials and all that stuff. So people feel it's normal, and it's now becoming normal in society. It is the media, it's the entertainment industry, etc., that have normalized all this garbage, all this rot. I am not saying people should cover up and people should become brahmacharis and all. Do live your life, but live as in line with your civilizational values. Everything was allowed in our civilization, but promiscuity and all this nonsense was never part of our culture. But now it's become normal. We are just trying to ape the West, because we have this deep inferiority complex, or most Indians have it. They want to, whatever the white man does has to be right, and we have to try and emulate that to become better, to better ourselves. So that's what's gone wrong. The inferiority complex, the entertainment industry, the media, Even the education system, which puts the white man on a pedestal, all of this coming together has created this situation where we are a nation of utter losers and simps. Full supports are. Mr. Strange says, what's the stance of Russia and China in the Israel-Iran war? They're going to stay out of it, you see. I mean, it will be a setback for Russia if Iran falls. But by now, I'm sure they have localized the production of Shahed 2 and Shahed whatever drones and so on. So they'll be okay. For China, it'll be a setback because they have this 25-year strategic agreement with Iran, which essentially is a Chinese attempt to colonize Iran and to acquire great quantities of very cheap, energy from Iran and all that. So it'll be a setback for Iran it'll be a setback for China as well as Russia if Iran falls. But see, what's happened is this: because of the sudden flare up in the West Asia region, the world's eyes have gone off the Ukraine issue, right? So no one's talking about Ukraine right now. Everyone's looking at Israel and Iran. So Russia can quietly achieve certain ends that they want right now in Ukraine without the gaze of the world being on that, and so on. So it gives Russia some breathing space to do what it wants. But overall, it will be bad for Russia as well as China, as well as for India, if Iran undergoes a regime change. Priyal says, why is the world on fire? Well, we didn't start the fire. It's been burning ever since the world's been turning. What can I say? Shubham Dubey says, when the time truly comes, who will genuinely stand with India? Some are already questioning if this represents a failure in our geopolitical strategy. Those who say that this represents a failure in our geopolitical strategy, they don't know what geopolitics is. They have no understanding of history. They have no understanding of anything. All they want to do is to throw some fuel in the fire and get some likes and shares and all that nonsense. India has always been alone. For decades, for centuries, India has been alone. When the time comes, nobody will stand with India. Right now, Iran is under fire. Who is standing with Iran? Tell me. Has China come to Iran's rescue? Has Russia come to Iran's rescue? If the regime is overthrown in Tehran, is anybody coming to Iran's rescue? Why do you think it's only about India, India, India? Everybody is on their own. If something bad happens to the US tomorrow, do you think that EU and NATO is going to come to the rescue? If something really bad happens, nobody is going to come to the rescue. To hell with article this or that of the NATO charter or whatever. Nobody is going to come to the rescue. People come to your rescue only if they fear you and if they think that you're going to survive whatever's happening. So this alliance that the Americans have created, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, this alliance, it will work as long as the NATO nations fear the US. If the US becomes genuinely very weak and it's under siege and it's in danger of going down, like they say, NATO will automatically dissolve. Nobody will come to the US's rescue. So please understand that there are no friends in geopolitics. It's always alliances and agreements and arrangements of convenience. Even when you have shared civilizational interests and all, even then, people won't come and stand with you and put their necks on the line. If it comes to that, think back of the old days when these Ghoris and Ghaznavis used to invade India. At that time, India was not unified under a single geopolitical entity like an emperor, right? So the Ghori or Ghaznavi would invade one kingdom, one Rajput kingdom, and everybody around the other kingdoms nearby were also Rajput kingdoms. But they would say, okay, it's not happening to me, it's happening to him. Maybe it will not happen to me. Let's stay away. That's how it works. What happens locally also applies globally. So when the time truly comes, nobody is going to stand with us. And that's nothing unique. Nobody's standing with Iran right now. Tomorrow, if something bad happens to China, do you think anybody will stand with China? Nobody will. When things went bad, when everything went wrong with Iraq, with Saddam Hussein, who stood with Saddam Hussein? Tell me. When Gaddafi was overthrown, who stood with Libya? Come on. That's the way it is all across the world. Why are we thinking that we are something if the whole world is against us? It's nothing to do with the whole world being against us at all. That's just the way the world works. This has nothing to do with the failure of Mr. Modi's geopolitical strategy. Only 30 IQ people are saying that. Okay. So we are on our own, and we have to ensure that nobody can, dare try to cross us. That's what I say. That's what I would say. Sid says, how can grassroots thought leaders and families help elevate discourse and foster an Indic renaissance in the modern Indian context? The grassroots efforts are all going to be mediocre. Okay, there are so many so-called grassroots efforts, this organization, that organization. I'm not naming anybody, by the way. I'm just saying in general. Lots of initiatives here and there are occurring, but what greatness do you see in them? Greatness can only be applied to a civilization top down, never bottom up. Bottom up is always going to be average stuff, average people doing average things. There are no grassroots thought leaders. I cannot think of one. And it's look, every great leader who becomes a great person does come from the grassroots at some point in time. But first, they have to elevate themselves above the grassroots and find a way of rising and becoming very prominent, becoming a colossus. It's only then that you can change things, elevate discourse, foster an Indic renaissance. First of all, without large amounts of money, there's going to be no elevation of discourse, no Indic renaissance. The word renaissance comes from what happened in Europe about 500 or so years ago. How did the renaissance come about? It came about because of a tremendous amount of prosperity. It was money that fueled the renaissance. It was prosperity and money, excess money, that fueled the renaissance. Do we have that in India right now? First of all, India needs to become super prosperous, or at least moderately prosperous, so that some people have the excess money and they have the right mindset to maybe use that money to create some kind of artistic renaissance, cultural renaissance, and so on and so forth. Right? Such people are never grassroots leaders. Such people are always higher than grassroots. Any person who is exceptional is by definition not a grassroots person. That person is always different. That person stands apart. That person doesn't belong with the average people. The average people don't understand such people. You've got to be different. If you are the same as everybody else, there's nothing you're going to be able to do, because you're going to think the same way as everybody else. So my point is, if some of you want to bring about an Indic renaissance, think different. Don't be like everybody else. Don't be average. Don't be mediocre. Mediocre means average. Don't be average. Don't expect the world to understand you. Generate a lot of employment, make a lot of money, become super prosperous, and then you can do it top down, not bottom up. That's what you need to do. Because I've seen lots of these bottom up organizations and all. They do nothing. They do nothing. They have no impact on the world, unfortunately. Divyam says, what's the major source of your income? Well, that is classified, and that's not for you to know, sir. Confused fan says, Elon Musk replied to a user who was talking about how by using Starlink they can do a regime change in Iran. Why are we allowing Starlink in India? It's because we have somehow been arm twisted into doing this. It goes completely against our national interests. I would still urge the government of India to revoke the license for Starlink. Starlink is going to be a national security threat. It's going to be a sovereignty threat for India. We remember, right? Donald Trump put out this tweet a month ago that he used the threat of sanctions, economic sanctions on India, to stop India from destroying Pakistan. He must have used such similar threats to force India to agree to give Starlink a license. Right now, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are fighting. Maybe it's the right time for us to revoke the license, but that time will not last forever. If you want the right time window, the right time window is now. I would urge the government of India to revoke Starlink's license. We don't need this third-rate service in India. We have excellent internet services in India, better than most of the rest of the world. We don't need Starlink. If you need something like Starlink, create your own Starlink. Don't you have some self-respect? Use ISRO, use Geo, use Adani, use whatever. Have them create a bunch of satellites, 10,000 satellites, and have ISRO launch them. Make this happen in the next 5 years. Why can't we do it? Of course it can be done. And then we can compete with Starlink and outcompete Starlink. That's what needs to happen. ideally. But let's see. Godliness says, can you enlighten the Indians and the policymakers on the dangers of drying rivers, extreme heat waves, degrading agricultural land, soil erosion? These problems are huge. These problems are huge. I agree. See, heat waves, they dry out our soil, they dry out our agricultural land. It's climate change. Our crops, they need certain kinds of climates and certain kinds of weather patterns, right? Because they've evolved to make use of these patterns, these climatic patterns, over tens of thousands of years. We have been doing agriculture in India for at least 18,000 years, and ever since then the crops are used. They are accustomed to these climatic patterns. Now if the climate changes, it's going to be disastrous. If the temperature rises by 2 degrees, that could destroy crops. It could make us dependent on crops, on imports from other parts of the world, right? You see drying rivers all over the place. You open Google Maps, and on the map it will be shown as a blue line, but when you see the satellite image, it's all dried out. You see that all over the place. So yes, extreme heat waves, again, they cause a tremendous amount of damage. They destroy crops, they kill people, they kill animals, they destroy agricultural land. Because of extreme heat, the green cover of the country starts reducing. Because of that, there is soil erosion. The topsoil flies away, which makes the soil barren, and so on. These problems are huge. What's the solution? We can talk about problems all day. What's the solution to these problems? The solution is that we need to reforest as much of our land as possible. We need to reforest the hills where there are no buildings, no construction. If it's public land, if it's government land, build forests, grow forests all over the place. We need to ensure that rivers keep on flowing. We should not build too many dams. We should build dams strategically, for sure. We need water to reach agricultural lands all over the place. We need to build more dams on the Indus River systems. No question about that. No question. But we should build dams strategically. It should not cause damage to the existing ecosystems and all that. So yeah, the problems are huge. The solution is simple, easy to say but difficult to do, but which is to reforest as much of our land as possible. MK says, why did China dare to confront the USSR during the Ussuri River clashes, despite being isolated from the West and knowing that the Soviets had nuclear superiority? Okay. This happened in the late 1960s, sometime in 1969. By that time, China also had, I think, the nuclear bomb. But I think the Soviets had a significant nuclear advantage, no question about it. Now, what happened was this. At that time, the leader of China was Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong was a huge admirer of Stalin, Joseph Stalin. Okay? Mao saw Stalin as somebody who was superior to him. He genuinely revered Joseph Stalin. Now Stalin dies. Stalin died, and then Nikita Khrushchev became the next leader of the USSR. And Mao interacted with Nikita Khrushchev, etc. And Mao was not impressed at all with Nikita Khrushchev. He saw Nikita Khrushchev as somebody not worthy of being the successor of Stalin. And Mao could see the decline of the USSR beginning with Nikita Khrushchev. So he lost respect for Khrushchev. He lost, by extension, respect for the USSR. And Mao always had this expansionist nature. You know what he did with Tibet? He grabbed such a huge territory because we allowed him to do that. We helped him in doing that. So then he thought, let me try my luck with the USSR and try and grab certain territories, which according to so ancient Chinese map, which I invented last week, was part of our territory. So he tried to grab some territory which was kind of gray area, gray zone kind of thing, not properly demarcated. And that's why you had the Ussuri River clashes, which were tremendous clashes. Hundreds of soldiers died. And Nikita Khrushchev decided that let us nuke China. So the Soviets had nuclear superiority, but the Chinese had population superiority. Understand that. The Chinese used in those days human wave tactics in warfare. Just large, file after file of human beings, soldiers with these primitive guns who would just walk or run in lines, in files. So human wave tactics they had, and the USSR was rightfully concerned that Siberia was almost empty, and the Chinese could just push in millions of people into Siberia, and just like that take over Siberia. So there was a big fear that the Soviets had about China, and the Chinese were aware of this advantage of theirs. So that's why they thought, let's gamble and let's try and grab some pieces of Soviet territory, and that's why this happened. And China must have gambled that maybe the USSR will not use nuclear weapons on us. They decided to use the weapons, but the Americans came to know about this, and the Americans saved the Chinese, and that's how the whole process of America aiding and abetting and midwifing China's rise. All of that starts over there. Okay, Yuvraj Chib says, I'm 20 years old and I failed in NEET again. Please guide. You're 20 years old, NEET, you failed. Okay, it's not the end of the world. You can try it again, but you should also know that you should not keep on trying this over and over again. In case it's too tough an exam for you, it's possible. Nothing wrong with that. So first thing is, don't get discouraged. It's not the end of the world. You're just 20. You're just starting your life. There's so many options in front of you. The younger you are, the more options you have. The older you are, the less options you have. So at this point in time, you're starting off, you have options. So don't get discouraged. Maybe you can try it again if it is something you can do. Listen, I am not that very well versed with the Indian education system. It's something I despise. The education system, it's terrible, it's rotten. But yes, people like you, kids, I understand you have to use this to advance in life and start some career. So I would say, listen, don't get discouraged. It's not the end of the world. Don't worry about what people say about this. Oh, you failed or whatever. To hell with them. Who cares? If this is something that you really want, maybe you can try again. Or maybe you should have some plan B, plan C also along with that. So in case this doesn't work out, what other things can you do? That's what I would say you should do. Be positive, be optimistic, be full of energy. Try again, and always have plan B and plan C in case it doesn't work out. So all the best, Yuvraj. Kiran Media says, IDF still has not taken the distorted Indian map down yet on Twitter. They are sorry that they revealed the true intentions. Well, that's how it goes. Look, I've been saying this for a long time. Israel is not some special friend of India. We have a lot of geopolitical convergence of interests, and that's why we work together. We have developed various weapon systems with Israel, like the Barak missile system. We use the Israeli Harop system. During the Kargil war, Israel supported India. Israel supplied India with arms, ammunition, whatever. That's what one hears, and so on. They sold it. They did not give it for free. Please understand that. But the Americans wanted India to do very poorly, but Israel kind of sold it to us. So outstanding, good. But understand, the thing is unconditional. They're not like some all-weather friends of ours. They have their own interests. We have our own interests. We have to understand that our interests can differ in various things. For example, when it comes to voting in the UN on various resolutions concerning Palestine and so on and so forth, whatever Palestine is, India typically either abstains or votes against Israel. Okay? So Israel, you could say from their perspective, they have the right to feel aggrieved about that. And then what Israel does is that they put out the wrong map of India according to Indians. According to Indians, it's the wrong map of India. According to the world, it's the right map because right, maybe not. But some territories are currently occupied by Pakistan and by China. But we want to show those territories as part of our map. But the facts on the ground say something else, right? So that's why from Israel's perspective, it may be right. But when Israel displays Arunachal Pradesh as part of China, that borders on malicious now, right? And you also have to ask yourselves, my dear Indians, if Israel keeps saying that they are against terrorism, why have they never taken any action against Pakistan? If they are worried about a terrorist nation having nuclear weapons, which is what they say about Iran, why have they done nothing about Pakistan having nuclear weapons? It is also being alleged that Pakistan helped Israel in the current decapitation strike against Iranian generals, because a few days or weeks ago, Pakistan, Asim Munir, that fellow, he gave a watch as a gift to Mr. Bagheri of Iran. And that watch perhaps carried some kind of tracking device which allowed the Israelis to take him out. You see, so Pakistan and Israel looks like there's a possibility that they may be working together. So Indians are I just don't understand how naive Indians can be, including some very prominent military experts and all. But yeah, I hope Indians can see this and without think beyond your brainwashing. I have nothing against Israel, by the way. Okay, I have nothing personal against Israel. I would anytime take Israel over Palestine and all that. No question about it. If you ask me to choose between supporting Palestine and supporting Israel, I will always take Israel. But if you ask me to choose between Israel and Iran, I would say I'm out of this matter. This doesn't concern me. I'm neutral. And if you say that I have to choose um, Israel, between Iran continuing to exist in its current shape and form, or a regime change in Iran, I would say I would prefer the regime of the mullahs to stay in place. Yeah, the world is complicated. Mullerine says mysterious support of Indians to Israel is very sad. I would say Indians should look at their national interest first. We should have nothing against Israel or Iran or anybody, right? But this what Indians imagine that Israel is India's best friend and we should support them unconditionally. Well, that is completely naive and ridiculous. Vicky Sharma says, thank you for building my confidence. Okay. I'm 23, run an 8-figure business. Outstanding, sir. Outstanding. I like that. Pay 30% tax, yet face bribery in basic government work. UAE pays 0% tax. I love my country but feel stuck. Would value your advice. Go to the UAE. My advice to you is go to the UAE. Okay? Turn that 8-figure business into 10-figure business. Then if you have some extra money that you would like to use to help the country you love, your country, then you can do it on a case-by-case basis. I would say go to the UAE. If this country is not treating you well, it's not the country that's not treating you well. It is the system that is victimizing you. You see, Indians need to understand the country doesn't victimize anybody. Our civilization is not victimizing anybody. It is this current colonial system which hasn't changed from the British days that is victimizing people. So if you are being victimized and if you're being treated like this, if you are being made to forced to pay bribes, otherwise nothing works, you know what? Take your business elsewhere. My advice to you is move to the UAE. Turn your 8-figure business into a 10-figure business. Then you can maybe contribute something to India in a way that doesn't force you to pay any bribes. That's what I would say. But I'm so happy to see that you're doing an 8-figure business. I would like to see you do far better. So all the best. Don't ever do something that clips your wings. Always try and reach the fullest extent of your potential wherever you have to go for it. Nanda Kizor says, why Israel never shows correct map of India? Well, that's something Israel has to answer. Right? Why does Israel never say a thing against Pakistan? Why do they never take any action against Pakistan? They keep on saying that we hate terrorism and Iran is a terrorist nation. Hey, what about Pakistan? Iran is nothing compared to Pakistan. Israel does not have any problem with terrorism. They have a problem only with Iran. Otherwise, they would do something against Pakistan, but they don't. Kaizen says the current government does not seem to be pro-Hindu civilization. It seems like they have accepted the system, secular and socialist as it is, and they're not bringing any key reforms that will truly unleash Bharat's potential. My opinion is that the government is focusing on development, on growth, on infrastructure, etc., etc. But if by 2050 India is no longer Indian, then who are you creating all this infrastructure for? You're going to hand it over to the descendants of the Bangladeshis who are living in India, right? Then what's the point of all this development? Something has to be done. The first thing is very simple: get rid of all the foreign infiltrators. Whatever the number is, it's somewhere between 50 and 100 million. Get rid of them, whatever it takes to do that. Then secondly, yes, it's time that we start building up our civilization again. It starts with the education system. Start by teaching kids their culture and civilization, and so on. So all of that is not being done, and which is very unfortunate. I find it's very unfortunate. That's my opinion. Prithvi sir, thank you. Really now says, people like you are MSM for me, poor UPSC aspirants, Hindu, mainstream media. Well, thank you so much. I think what you're trying to say is that trying to say something good. Uh, yeah, if you're gaining some kind of value from whatever I'm doing, then I'm glad. Okay, so these Q&A sessions are more like it's you will gain. I'm sure you will gain more value from other things that I'm doing, like the geostrategy series, the Indian interest series, and all. Understanding America, if that's something that you're into, and I hope that these Q&As also kind of throw light on various things and how to think differently, etc. And if it's helping you, then I'm very glad about it. So, yeah, thank you. Dheeraj Kamath says, then do you think that Dharma needs a strong top-down structure and centralized leadership to secure its interests? Hinduism has always been bottom-up. Hinduism has always been a super diverse civilization, super bottom-up. But the moment state support disappears, Hinduism disintegrates. Hinduism has always thrived historically. Please look back at history, the past several thousand years of history. Hinduism is fragile. Hinduism needs state support. Hinduism thrives only when there is proper state support from the top, without interference at the bottom. Right? So, how did Hinduism thrive in the past? Hindu Dharma, all kinds of Dharma, Hindu Dharma, Jain Dharma, Bauddha Dharma, etc. Dharma, all these different schools of thought. How did they thrive? They thrived when the kings and emperors would give grants to temples, to Vishwavidyalayas, to universities. They would give ongoing, continuing support to these institutions so that they would not have to look for money. They would get the money they need so that they could just do their thing. Teachers would just teach without having to worry about fees, which means that in India, education was free. Temples were not just places of worship, they were centers of education and so on and so forth. When it comes to various manifestations of Indian culture, Indian dance forms, Indian music, all of that also had state patronage and support. When it comes to science, mathematics, astronomy, all that, you had state support. Who was the patron of the great astronomer and mathematician Brahmagupta? Look it up. All of these great people had state support and state patronage. And that is what contributed to the flourishing of Dharma and to the efflorescence of Indian culture and civilization. That way, Hinduism has always been bottom up because all these geniuses come from the bottom, but without top down state support, it all disintegrates. I mean, look at what happened after 1947. Until 1947, all the so called princely states used to support culture. Now you kill off the princely states, and then you have one central institution somewhere that decides what grant to give to which artist, and not based on the artist's merit, but allegedly they will just give support to whoever is willing to pay them bribes. So that destroys culture. So Dharma needs a strong top-down support structure. Always does. It doesn't have to be centralized in Delhi. It can be centralized anywhere. It can be centralized at the district level, state level, whatever. But you need top-down support. And then you can see bottom-up resurgence. That's how it works. ADCL says, why did Israel aid India in 71 despite US ties? Because Israel is more powerful than the US, it looks like. Israel can do whatever it likes. Israel can take down an American warship and smash it to bits, and nothing happens. Israel is a special nation. The Israeli people are the chosen people of God, right? God's chosen people. They can do whatever they like. That's what it looks like. I'm just saying, based on the evidence, historical evidence at our disposal. Okay. Nachiket says, please discuss the terrible cost-cause ratio of US NATO. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Cost-cause ratio of US versus NATO. Cost versus cause. What's cost versus cause? I'm not sure what you mean, sir. Cost versus cause. Sorry, I didn't get it. Very sorry. Kumar Kanishka says, why do we no longer have great movies like Godfather, Shawshank Redemption, Full Metal Jacket, etc.? Why the quality of cinema globally has gone down overall? I feel you, brother. I feel you. I love movies. If I had the opportunity, I would go and watch 2 movies a week on the big screen, happily. But we no longer have great movies. I would love to pay my money to good cinema and watch 2 movies a week, as long as you have great movies. But the movies today it's mental torture to watch them. Utter torture. I don't know what's happened. They used to have such great movies back in the past. Every week you would have at least one good movie that you could be able to watch. You can't. What's happened? It's because of ideology creeping into the movie studios. Now movies feel like lectures. The objective of making a movie is to lecture the viewer. That's, I'm talking about Hollywood here. Okay, even Bollywood has become utter trash. At least there used to be some kind of quality in the past, like 20, 25 years ago. Today Bollywood movies are just trash, formulaic garbage, right? So what's happened in Hollywood is that movies are now left liberal lectures. That's what they are. It's all about lecturing the viewers as to how they should think and how they should behave and what is right and what is wrong. And the movies are so unrealistic today. You have female superheroes who can beat up a guy who's twice their size. I mean, are you kidding me? Who's going to believe that in real life? And some people actually end up believing this, and then they think they can do that. So the quality of cinema has gone down. What was the last few good movies we watched? I think the Lord of the Rings in Hollywood was good, and maybe the initial few James Bond movie, the initial first James Bond movie of um, the guy who retired recently, Craig, whatever his name is. Casino Royale was okay, and so on. Recently, a couple of Tom Cruise movies were good. The latest, what was it? Mission Impossible was fine, and Top Gun was okay, and so on. Top Gun was surprisingly not bad, etc. But overall, most movies are just trash. There's no point watching them. It's because of the injection of ideology and the leftist ideals. It's trying into what should be just art. When nobody wants to pay money to be lectured. So Vivek Singh says Israel allegedly attacked Iran nuclear and military installations, but Iran attacked civilian areas of Israel. Do you consider this to be a blunder, or is it to give Israel an excuse to escalate? I'm going to stay out of this matter. I'm going to stay out of the matter. Some people are saying that Iran has attacked the center of Tel Aviv. Some people are giving a counter argument. Not me. Some other people are giving counter arguments that that Iran is trying to hit military installations in the middle of Tel Aviv because we can see rockets going into the sky from residential areas. Then there's a counter argument that these are defensive installations and so on and so forth. So it's an ongoing thing. When there's war, things happen whichever way. Like recently, the 3-day war between India and Pakistan, we hit Pakistani terrorist infrastructure, we hit Pakistani military infrastructure. The Pakistanis were shelling Indian civilians. So it's not a good thing to do, but whatever. I think it's possible that Israel may or may not, I don't know, they may or may not have military installations in civilian areas. It's possible. May not be possible. I don't know. I'm not aware of what the deal is. So I think it's all a battle of perception and narratives. My point is, this is not my fight. This is not India's fight. We're going to stay out of it. And I hope that both sides will calm down and stop the war. But yeah, it's easier said than done. Manikandan Venkataraman says, can you comment on Tamil Nadu CM claims on... Sir, look, I don't get into Indian politics. I'm sorry, but I don't get into Indian politics. Saraswati civilization being mythical, claims that Kiladi is the oldest. Important to refute such claims, civilizational continuity. Okay, let me just say, look, the Saraswati civilization, Saraswati Sindhu civilization, we know there is culture, there is clear, unambiguous archaeological evidence of cultural continuity that goes back at least now 12,000 years. So we have the earliest archaeological site, which was Bhirana in Haryana, which is about 9,500 years old. We know that it's carbon dated, and that shows clear evidence of cultural continuity, archaeological evidence of that. And then now they've found some place in Kutch or something, which is about 12,000 years old. I'm telling you, this is still just the beginning. More than 2,000 archaeological sites exist on the dry riverbed of the Saraswati, which have never been excavated. The moment you start excavating those, it's going to go back further and further and further and further. Now, I don't know about Kiladi, etc. There's always some complaint coming out of Tamil Nadu that Kiladi is not getting excavated. Well, why doesn't the Tamil Nadu government do it? No one's stopping you, right? So my point is, this is all politics. I don't want to get into this political matters. Okay, uh, what is absolutely clear, my friends, is that the Saraswati Sindhu region and the civilizational infrastructure in this region goes back tens of thousands of years, at least 12,000 years now. And if you look at the Gulf of Khambat archaeological complex, which is underwater, under the ocean, it was last above the ocean about 10, 11, 12,000 years ago. And it's not some piece of rock or something. It's a complex of cities, a network of cities. And the cities are laid out in a grid structure like Manhattan 10, 11, 12,000 years ago. And they are laid out just like the other cities in the Saraswati Sindhu region, but they are older. So my point is, we need to stop all this stupid, idiotic infighting, whoever may be doing it. Okay? We are all one civilization, one culture. North, south, east, west, doesn't matter. We are one culture, one civilization. We all have the same genetics also, despite the skin color or whatever. Yeah? So that's what I would say about this. We need to stop fighting. Devin Dore says, I've seen several images of public servants not following traffic rules. Should I start uploading them anonymously on Telegram? Sir, it's entirely up to you. It's up to you, sir. I don't know. I'm sure it happens. I would leave this decision to you, sir. Bipul Singh says, you vehemently wanted the Indian forces in POK during Operation Sindoor. Then change your stance. You weren't privy to info. Yeah. I am a stance changer, right? That's what you're saying. Huh? I still say I wanted this to happen. When did I change my stance? What are you talking about? I changed my stance today, saying I wasn't privy to info the government has. That is not a change of stance. I still am not privy to info the government has. What are you talking about? Can't Nehru say the same thing, abolish, etc.? Okay, whatever. Sahil says, should India become an autarky? Should, yeah, but can we? For that, we need to find oil reserves, we need to find mineral reserves, everything that is enough to sustain ourselves for 100 plus years. So Russia is an autarky because it is so large, such an enormous geographical region, that they have everything they need. They have oil, gas, coal, iron ore, copper ore, every single mineral resource that they may or may not need. They have all the chemical resources they need for fertilizers. They have enough agricultural land. They have everything they need. In India, it's not the case. For example, we don't have sufficient oil and gas thus far. I think we may have reserves, but we have not looked for them. Similarly, there are other things that we may not have. For example, rare earths. Of course, once again, we have not looked for them. We have been sleeping. So India should strive to become an autarky, for sure. No question about that. Will we be able to do that? I think we do have a very large land mass, no question about it. So I'm sure it's possible if we try hard enough. Vinay Joshi says, what happened to Tutsis in Rwanda? What fueled it? There was a civil war kind of situation in Rwanda I think in 94 or something, about 21 years ago. Hutus versus Tutsis, and this was fueled by the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church actually eventually apologized for this, right? So the Catholic Church caused a genocide in Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide. Can you believe it? Valiant Prince says, okay, thank you, sir. Please consider this is a history question rather than a religious one. Are the Syrian Christians of Kerala a good example of indigenous Christians, meaning they're still culturally Indian and Hindu? I am not aware of this. I don't know about the lifestyle and etc. and so on and so forth of the Syrian Christians of Kerala. I don't know. They seem to claim that they are very culturally Indian and Hindu. They still follow certain Hindu practices while also worshipping Jesus Christ and so on. So if that is true, if the claims I've heard are true, then it means that they are a good example of indigenous people who have adopted a foreign religion but who still hold on to some indigenous culture, customs and all that, which I'm sure that the Catholic Church will not like very much if they come to know about this, because in the past they used to burn people for that. But yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I'm not aware personally. This is not something that interests me very much. The lifestyle of indigenous converts to other religions and so on. It's never been something that has been part of what I've researched. So I can't really say. This is not part of my sphere of knowledge, unfortunately. Vishal Roar says every country is alone except for Israel. Maybe that's true. With Israel, you have the US and all other US vassals. Maybe even Pakistan. So, okay, Bharatiya says, okay, Grand Saraswati River 18,000 years before present that I claimed in episode 258 comes from a 2814 report by Government Remote Sensing Energy Agency, ISRO, clearly describing various... No question about it. No question about it. The Saraswati River would go back more than 18,000 years. As old as 40,000 years before present. And other rivers used to flow into this great river, and then there were changes, of course, and all that. Yeah, no question about it. That's not the point. There's no question this river was very ancient, tens of thousands of years old, and it dried out only about around 1500 BC. And it still exists to some extent in North India. It's called the Ghaggar Hakra River. Every year during the rainy season, it again flows and overflows and becomes the mother of floods. So it still exists up north in northern India, Haryana, that region. So there's no question that what you have said is correct. But you had tied that with the age of the Rig Veda. So if the Saraswati is, let's say, 40,000 years old, does it mean the Rig Veda is also 40,000 years old? That I would not agree necessarily. It can perhaps mean that the Rig Veda was written when the Saraswati was first born, but it necessarily doesn't mean that. So one has to, when one makes claims based on scientific evidence, one has to be as rigorous as possible and as skeptical as possible, and be as conservative as possible. Otherwise, people will say you're a charlatan and you're a conspiracy theorist. So, because the Rig Veda does mention the Saraswati as a river that's clearly in her prime, a loudly roaring river, the mother of floods, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. The kind of description that you have is that of a grand, glorious, rather majestic and scary river, right? So it means that the Rig Veda, the authors of the Rig Veda who wrote these lines, they saw the river in her prime. They did not see a river in her decline, which means that Rig Veda was written closer to 6,000 BC. Of course, it's possible it was written at 18,000 BC, but there's no evidence of that. But at least we can say it was closer to 6,000 BC than to 1500 BC. So that's what I'm saying. It's a nuanced argument. Hopefully you understand. Vine Gaming YT says, does Planet X exist? Well, if it exists and if we have evidence of it, it will be all over the news. So we haven't found it yet. Planet X, Planet 9, whatever. So why do we believe something may exist? It's because of the chaotic and elongated orbits of the solar system objects that exist beyond the orbit of Neptune. Those are not in line with the plane of the solar system. The solar system planets are all in one plane. It's because the very early solar system, before any planets formed, it was just a protostellar disk which was spinning around the center like a frisbee. So it was all in one plane, flat. So all the planets that exist today are in the original plane of the protostellar disk. But there are some objects beyond the orbit of Neptune that are inclined, or they have inclined orbits at sharp angles to the plane of the solar system. So something has disrupted the orbits of these objects. So that tells us something is there out there which we perhaps can't see. And that's why people are looking for this planet. Maybe there's a big planet out there that's too far away for us to see. Maybe it's out there in darkness and we are not able to see it, but maybe we can detect it using various methodologies. So that's the deal, but we haven't found it yet. Okay, Geopolitical Dubey says, how do I deal with the Indian education system? You have to put up with it. You have to get your degrees and get out of it, and don't allow it to corrupt your mind. So everybody goes through this. At least I was aware that this was all nonsense. I remember when I was in, I don't know what standard, 8th or 9th standard, I had this history book in which they said that there was this poet called Firdausi who wrote a biography of Shah Jahan called the Shahnameh. That's what my textbook told me. Now, I went back and did some research, and I discovered that Firdausi was an Iranian Persian poet who wrote the Shahnameh as the chronicle of all the Persian kings starting from the Rigvedic age. It has nothing to do with Shah Jahan. But this Indian textbook was teaching me that Firdausi wrote this as a biography of Shah Jahan, the Turkic ruler who ruled over India. So you have to first recognize the fact, if you're a student, that the Indian education system is full of garbage and full of lies. So you have to pass exams and get good marks. So just temporarily memorize this garbage, write it down in your exams, and immediately forget it. And if you want to really learn about the world, do some extracurricular learning. That's reading. That's what I would say. That's how we deal with the Indian education system. Don't allow it to brainwash you. Don't allow it to subvert your mind ideologically. Okay, always be aware that this is an attempt to subvert my mind. So that's what I would say. So the earlier you deal with it and get rid of it, the better it is. Kajoro Bitathon says, is Red Note CN Instagram not banned in India? Part of influence operation you spoke of. Very anti-India, but some warm people-to-people ties to a Chinese girl in exchange program in Delhi made nice daily vlogs interesting. Okay, Red Note is some kind of Chinese app, is it? I'm not aware of it. A Chinese version of Instagram. If it's a Chinese app, it's part of the influence operations. Okay, yeah. So I'm glad you put this out. What is Red Note? Let's Google it, shall we? Let us Google it together. What is a Red Note? Red Note. What is Red Note? It's a Xiao Hongshu, Chinese social media and e-commerce platform. It's a combination of Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest, and beauty, fashion, travel, blah 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 blah. This is what it looks like. Is it available in India? I thought the government of India had banned a whole lot of Chinese apps. It's still available in India. If it is, then it's definitely guaranteed 100% part of the Chinese influence operations. 100% guaranteed. And of course, you will have some nice Chinese girls who will be in exchange programs in Delhi, who will make nice daily vlogs saying nice things about India. So, balance things out. 80% it will be anti-India, but 20% people saying nice things about India. So Indians feel, no, it's not all biased. See, because Indians are so stupid, they will see one good thing and they'll say, oh, no. You see, there's this example over here. So it's to fool Indians. You see, most Indians are such incredibly gullible people that because on this app, most people are anti-India, but there are like 2-3 Chinese girls who are saying nice things about India. So they'll say, no, all Chinese people are not bad. See, we have to see these people also. They are saying nice things about India. So that's how we do the influence operations, right? So yeah, I'm sure it is part of these influence ops that I'd mentioned, that I'd referred to. Feminist Slayer says, is it false? First, if the velocity of a body is zero, then the acceleration can be non-zero. Secondly, a body moving at constant velocity can have acceleration. Okay, velocity is dx by dt. It's a vector quantity. Okay, it will have a direction. It's also part of vector space. So velocity is dx by dt. X is the change. X is the distance. X is it's your x coordinate, right? And dx by dt is your change in the x coordinate with respect to time. So it's the motion. So velocity is dx by dt. Acceleration is d squared x by dt squared, which is the change in the rate of velocity. So if your velocity is constant, zero is a constant, then if you differentiate that with respect to time, it's going to be zero, which means acceleration will be zero. So if your velocity is zero, or if it's constant, then acceleration is going to be zero, right? So both of your questions are the same question, actually, that if the velocity of a body is constant, whether it is 2 or 28 or 0, all these are constants, then can the acceleration be non-zero? It can't. The acceleration will be zero because it's simple differentiation with respect to time, and that's going to give you zero. If you differentiate a constant with respect to time, it's going to give you zero. So acceleration will be zero. It cannot have a non-zero acceleration. All right. Rahul says, I sent you an email on research collaboration some days back. I'm awaiting a response. I'll have to check. I have a couple of email IDs that I use for official purposes, and I have people screen that for me. And they send me what they think I need to look into, and I've given them instructions as to what I need to look into. So I don't have the time to go through all the emails, because that will become very tedious and very time consuming, because I get so many emails. So I've given very clear instructions as to what are the kind of emails that need to be brought to my attention. So, okay, I'll look into few days back. If you had told me which date it was that you sent me, it would have made my life so much easier. A few days back can mean 3 days or 30 days. I don't know what it means. I'll try and look into it personally. Research collaboration. Okay. Okay. Sharma says thoughts on the rise of Christianity in the West among young people, particularly young men. We are feeling disenfranchised by school and media. Women are pushed to the left while men are demonized. Yes, yes, that's what's going on in the West. It's also what's happening in India. So as a response, people want to fall back to some traditional values and all that. And in the West, that has usually meant Christianity in the past 1,000 or so years. Some people, especially in the Nordic countries, are going back even further. And they're trying to do this Nordic pagan revival, Asatru, etc. But in most parts of Europe, it's going to be people going back, trying to go back to Christianity. So it's just a natural knee jerk response to the demonization of men, of the destruction of culture, and of the imposition of non-culture on society. It's a response to the imposition of ugliness on society. If you look at art today, art is ugliness today. The modern art, it's just ugly garbage. Any idiot can produce that. Historically, art used to be very difficult to produce, and that's why it was so much in demand, and that's why it was so valuable. So there's gonna be some pushback to all of this that's happening. And in the West, yeah, people will want to go back to the only recourse they have, which is Christianity, right? Because nobody knows what pagan religion was like, and Christianity demonized that for 1,000 years. So people will want to fall back on the old culture, which is Christianity, which is a kind of a logical response to what is being done, because people can sense that some forces are trying to re-engineer society. Some people are trying to re-engineer the way we live our lives. They're trying to destroy the fabric of society by alienating men and women from each other, and so on. By demonizing men and putting women on a pedestal, and making women, veer to the left, and making men feel lost wherever they are, and so on. Men are demonized. Yeah, so because of all of these things, you're gonna have the rise of Christianity and whatever traditional cultures exist among young people, especially young men, I would suppose. And there's also this rise of nostalgia for the Roman Empire and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is all a natural response to what is being done to people in society. ICBM says, why don't we talk about India, Indonesia enough? Surely enhancing naval economic cooperation will help secure the Indo-Pacific and counter China's expansion. I don't know why we don't speak about India and Indonesia enough. Let's put this on the screen for some context. I have been trying to talk about Indonesia, to bring people's notice to Indonesia, the fact that Indonesia is a neighboring country of India. When you ask Indian students, which are India's neighboring countries, the first country they will say is Pakistan. Then they will say whatever other nations. Most people don't know that Burma is a neighboring country. And nobody will name Indonesia as a neighboring country. Let me show you something. What is the distance between India and Indonesia? Okay, let's try and see the distance between India and Indonesia. It's about less than 175 kilometers. Indonesia is less than 175 kilometers from India. Okay, and when it comes to Thailand, for example, if you want to see the distance between India and Thailand, that again is about less than 500 kilometers. Okay, that may be, of course, that may be Myanmar. But if you see this, Phuket, for example, this region, it's about 500 kilometers. So even Thailand is a neighboring country, but nobody is aware of it. Thailand, Indonesia are both neighboring countries. These are important countries. These are historically, civilizationally been part of our sphere of influence. If you go to Indonesia, people look like us. It's Indonesia. It's not Sinonesia, right? And the greatest period in Indonesian history was the Majapahit Empire, which was a Hindu empire. But we are not taught these things. There are no people-to-people connections. The Indians who go to Indonesia act like idiots. They have alienated the people of Bali because of their stupid behavior, the Indian tourists who go there, and so on. But the deal is that India and Indonesia are natural partners, right? It would be great to enhance economic ties between India and Indonesia. It would be great to enhance naval ties between India and Indonesia. It would be great if we can maybe supply arms and ammunition and so on to Indonesia. It would be great. So I think Indonesia, it's a natural partner for India, civilizational partner. Even though Indonesia is, you could say it's a Muslim country today, but The Indonesian Muslims have not given up their culture. They still have they still have Sanskrit names. They have the weirdest name combinations. Mohammed Vishnu. I mean, that's the kind of names they have. Megawati Sukarnaputri is a pure Sanskrit name, but imagine Mohammed Vishnu. it's it's a name that will offend two religions at the same time. But yeah, my point is they still are holding on to their culture, okay, which is Indian culture, and it was never imposed on Indonesia by force, never ever, uh, and so on. So it would be Indonesia is a great long-term partner for India, civilizational partner, maybe geopolitical partner as well. We should enhance all kinds of cooperation with Indonesia. Wonderful country, wonderful country. Okay, Vidhi says spiritual leaders of power, yes, yet why can't they take initiative to remove foreign education? Isn't it their responsibility? If government has failed, sannyasis have protected Bharat before. Um, Not sure how it works and what they can do. Some spiritual leaders are very powerful, of course, in India. One can think of a few. Can they start their own educational board and so on? I suppose they could. Maybe it's too much of a task. I don't know. I don't know. So maybe they can. Maybe they should. I would say you're right. It's an interesting point you're raising. Um, at least look, they can't possibly remove foreign education from India, but they can set up a parallel system of education that will be better for India civilizationally and culturally. That's something they could do. Maybe they are taking some initiatives at some level, via the shalas or whatever. But maybe it needs to be done more aggressively, and it needs to be pushed more outwards. That sort of thing, perhaps. Yeah. So maybe it's something that they can do better. Possibly. Yeah, so it's a good point you're raising, Vidhi. Good point. MK says, why Israel sold weapons to India during Kargil war despite being US number one ally? Didn't US intelligence not find and pressurize Israel? The US cannot pressurize Israel. Israel is not America's number one ally. Israel is not America's number one ally. America is Israel's number one ally. It's the other way around. Okay, so the US doesn't get to pressurize Israel. No, the US dare not pressurize Israel. Israel does whatever it wants. It's Israel that pressurizes the US. That's how it works. Okay. Ralph Rapchik says nations like the US, EU nations, UK, and Ireland are hit by a recession in information technology. Why us Indians think there are way better opportunities in IT than here? Why were we never hit severely by recession in IT? Why do Indians think there are better opportunities in information technology outside of India than here? It's not like that. The living standards are better outside of India. The salaries are better outside of India. It has nothing to do about better opportunities in IT. Whatever opportunities in IT exist in the US, in Ireland, in whatever EU nations, in UK, okay, those opportunities come with way better salary and way better living standards. That's why Indians want to go. Indians want to escape the horrors of India, the poverty, the even if you are getting a good salary, you have horrible abysmal living standards. It takes you 2 hours to travel one way to office and two hours to come back to your home. 4 hours in a day are gone there. Who wants to live in India if this is what you get for all the money that you are paying as a salary, as tax to the government? That's why Indians want to leave the country. Do you understand? It has nothing to do with whether there's a recession or not. And I don't know about whether we have been hit severely by recessions in IT or not, but AI is coming. AI is going to wipe the IT industry clean. Okay? Programming is already, to a large extent, you don't need programmers now. If you understand programming, and if you have some experience as a program as a project manager, then you can have AI do everything for you. So that is coming now, and that's going to wipe the entire field of IT clean very soon. Messi AIM says, what do you think is the reason for the Air India crash? Look, I don't know. It looks like, from my perspective, I could be wrong, it looks like there was a simultaneous dual engine failure. That's what it looks like. because the plane is taking off and suddenly it just loses lift, loses power, and just goes down. Looks like both engines failed at the same time. I mean, I cannot see any other reason. That's what it looks like to me. Of course, I am not an expert, and we'll have to wait for the official report to come. It's a big mystery and it's very strange. So I think it's too early for me to give any answer. My hunch, from whatever little I understand, is that it looks like dual engine failure, simultaneous. Ruchita and Ritik say thank you. Well, thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you so much. Swastik ji, thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik says, so many YouTubers celebrating Israel's attack on Iran. Well, telling that Iran is Pakistan's ally. What? What? Iran is Pakistan's ally? Okay. Israel is our ally. What alliance treaty do we have with Israel? Who are these people? Who are these people? Making it oversimplified, only you can give clarity. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Patnaik. The level of analysis that we have in India today, it's painful to see. It hurts your brain to see the kind of analysis that passes for the kind of garbage that passes for analysis. Why does India have to celebrate Israel's attack on Iran? How is Iran Pakistan's ally? What utter nonsense. Iran launched missile strikes in Pakistan not too long ago. Iran accused Pakistan of doing terrorism in Iran. How is Iran Pakistan's ally? Who are these people? Israel puts out wrong maps of India on a consistent basis. It's a pattern, but Israel is our ally. And it's not just about Kashmir, it's about Arunachal Pradesh. They are portraying Arunachal Pradesh as part of China. Even though Arunachal Pradesh, we have facts on the ground. It is within India. We have Indian flags all over the place. We have the Indian government, Indian army everywhere. And yet Israel is portraying Arunachal Pradesh as part of China. And these people are claiming Israel is our ally. And so on. And I remember some big Indian YouTuber analyst calling the Iran foreign minister a very bad word. I mean, what kind of people are these? They have no idea what the Indian national interest is. So anyway, okay, well, thank you for bringing this to our notice, Dr. Patnaik. MK says, do our diplomats know about actual geopolitical picture like you? For example, many nations are US vassals. I'm pretty sure they know. Come on. I'm pretty sure they know. I'm sure they know better than me, okay? Let's not put it that way. I'm sure they know better than me. I'm sure they know things that I don't know about. Okay, they are diplomats and they are with the government of India. They will know better than someone like me. Zemo says your roadmap to geopolitics from scratch. You have to start with learning history. Start with reading a lot of history. It will take you years to do that. Only then will the geopolitical connections, the causal chain become apparent to you, cause and effect, that when something like this happens, what are the possible outcomes, or if something like this has happened, what could be the cause for that. This is something you can only learn by studying history in great detail, not just Indian history, but history from all across the world. That gives you way more case studies. You have to study military campaigns, you have to study Caesar's campaigns, Napoleon's campaigns, you have to study Alexander's campaigns. You have to study the histories of the great dynasties, whether it's the Egyptian dynasties or the Persian dynasties, the Mesopotamian dynasties, the Chinese dynasties, Rome, all of that. You have to study the age of colonization, how colonization happened, how various continents were colonized. You have to study the history of warfare. You have to do all of that. It takes a lot of time. Only then can you understand the causal chain. Then you need to read the great geostrategists. You have to read Mackinder. You have to read Clausewitz. You have to read Swetchen if you want. You have to read people like Kissinger and Brzezinski. Well, that gives you a very Machiavellian approach to life. You can also read the Arthashastra. You can read Sun Tzu. You can read Machiavelli. It doesn't hurt to learn game theory, right? Especially if you want to understand how to do forecasting and all that. Forecasting with multiple scenarios and assign probabilities and all that. You have to study some game theory properly, mathematically. It helps to learn statistics and so on. It's a pretty long, complicated roadmap. It's not like you read 2 textbooks and you're done with geopolitics. Now I know geopolitics. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, so that's how it goes. I'm just giving you a very honest answer. It's a very long road. Varun says, raising standards every day. Thank you for it. Well, thank you so much for your comment and your contribution, sir. Grok says, Asim Munir wali news jhuti thi, sabne sach man liya. That he went to the US. He has not gone to the US. Has he been invited? We'll see about that. We'll see about that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. सबने सच मान लिया. सब कितने बुद्धू है. सब कितने बुद्धू है. कौन रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं. बुजदिल रात के अंधेरे में हमले करते हैं. Nachiket Jayaraman says, I meant bad cost versus cause ratio of Western military operations. Cost versus cause. What is cost versus cause? I can understand return on investment. I can understand cause versus effect ratio or cost versus effect ratio. What is cost versus cause? Let me try and maybe I'm really stupid. Okay, maybe I don't understand. Let me just Google it if I'm making some stupid mistake here. Cost cause ratio. Cost cause ratio. What does it mean? Cost cause ratio. I have never heard this term before. It's not a standard or universally recognized financial term or any term. I can understand cost to income ratio, cost to revenue ratio. I know cost benefit ratio and so on. What is cost to cause ratio? See, look, I'm not trying to make fun of you at all. I've never heard this term before. That's why I'm confused. Bad cost versus cause ratio. I don't know what that means, sir. I'm really sorry. And I don't know what it means. Kumar Kanish says South Africa finally beat Australia in the World Test Championship final, winning an ICC trophy for the first time ever, I suppose, right? Well, good for them. Good for them. They finally have succeeded in not choking. Well, good for South Africa. Good for them. I've seen them lose so many finals and all that, or so many semifinals. I remember when I was a kid, I watched one of the semifinals of the 1992 World Cup, England versus South Africa. South Africa needed 22 runs from, I think just 22 runs from 7 balls. And then there was a 10-minute period of rain. And then the Duckworth-Lewis system came in the way, and it said 22 runs from 1 ball. And that's why they lost the semi-final. And I've seen them lose so many of the semi-finals. I saw Virender Sehwag ball the last over, and he got Kluser out, and God knows who else out. And we won that match. And we recently won the T20 championship against South Africa. South Africa was winning easily, and then they choked. So I'm glad to see South Africa finally get something. I'm glad to see them defeat Australia, their old enemy. It's been very hard for South Africa to beat Australia. I believe Aiden Markram came good. Good for you, bro, Aiden. And I heard that Themba Bavuma came good. Well, good for you, captain. So overall happy. Good for them. They deserve it. Vivek Singh says, except for lava, Indian mobile companies failed to survive. Well, that's unfortunate. Did they fail to survive? Does lava still exist? I remember there was something called Micromax, which was just a Chinese brand with Indian thing on top, but whatever. Yeah, okay. If lava is still surviving, you see, what we need is innovation. What we need is our own research and development and our own innovations in technology. What Indians have done historically in technology is that they just import stuff from China and they put their own brand on top of that. That's it. That's terrible. Okay. Navdeep Singh Bajaj says, I'm curious as to why there's no 4K CCTV cameras in cockpit and cabin. I think it's not the norm. There's no reason except that it's not the norm. We don't do it. So in aircraft, you have the flight recorders, right? The so-called black box, which is actually bright orange, and that records everything that happens in the aircraft. It records all the events in the cabin, all the sounds, all the voices that are all the voice recordings of the pilot, co-pilot, etc., talking to each other, communicating with air traffic control, communicating with whoever else. All of that is recorded. Plus, all the telemetry, etc., is recorded. All the data of all the instruments and flight controls and whatnot. All of that is recorded, and that is all part of the flight recorder, which is called the black box. Why is there no 4K CCTV camera? Well, I've seen pilots. Pilots are known to vlog these days. There are these channels on YouTube in which there are pilots with typically GoPro or DJI cameras, and they record the outside of the cockpit. So the camera is put in front, and you can see the nose of the plane, and you can see what's in front of the plane. So pilots do that, and I think some airlines allow them to do that. But why no 4K recording, CCTV recording of the cockpit and cabin? Well, I don't know. It's now been the norm, and that's why nobody has done it. And because it's not the norm, it just continues the way it is. Dheeraj Kamath says Nehru was anti-Indic or victim of unknown circumstances. Nehru ji was nobody's victim, sir. Nehru ji was so great and so magnificent that he only had victims. If he did, he was nobody's victim. He was too great to be a victim. Anti-Indic, how can you accuse somebody as magnificent as Sri Nehru ji of being anti-Indic? He was the pinnacle that we should aspire to reach. He, of course, did say, that Indian temples make him feel all horrible and full of dread and so on. So, well, he was so enlightened and so great that this is how he felt about Indian temples. QWERTY U123 says, curious how evolution explains the origin of the first humans if they appear on different continents. How would they even have met? See, according to the theory of evolution, everything starts at one point. So humans would not originate simultaneously on different continents. They would originate in one place, and from there they would spread to other continents. And there they would evolve differently, perhaps. So it's like it's like the theory of the origin of the human chimpanzee divergence, right? See, our closest relatives are the chimpanzees, which they share about 98 point something percent of our DNA. So we are almost the same. And beyond the chimpanzees, the closest relatives for us are the gorillas, who also have about 96 or so percent of our DNA. So how did humans and chimpanzees diverge? So there's a theory of the Rift Valley origin, that over time the Rift Valley became wider and wider, and the groups of apes who lived on both sides, they became separated, and they evolved differently. So one became the chimpanzees and whatever, and one became the humans. And something similar must have happened to the common ancestor of the humans, chimpanzees, and gorillas. And somehow the gorillas split before the human chimpanzees split. So humans originated out of the split between humans and chimpanzees, and they originated in one place. That's the best that we know about. Okay. So the best theory is that we originated in Africa. And from there, groups of humans traveled to various continents. So, and in some cases they thrived. In some cases they went extinct. So we do have ancient humans who have been found in Southeast Asia. More than 1 million years ago they existed, but they died out. So that experiment failed. And the only human species that still exists today is us. So they did not appear on different continents simultaneously. They originated in one place. The best theory says that that humans originated in Africa, and from Africa they went to different continents multiple times. Some of these migrations failed and they died out, and some succeeded. So the Neanderthal migration, which happened maybe 400,000 years before today, or maybe 500,000, 500,000 years before today, it was a migration of humans, ancient humans, out of Africa into the Israel region, West Asia region, and also into Europe. And perhaps, I'm not sure about India, but certainly into those regions. And then you had Homo sapiens going out of Africa about 80,000 maybe years before today. And we met our Neanderthal cousins, and we acquired some of the DNA through interbreeding. But the Neanderthals turned out to be not as agile as us, and they died out. They left some DNA in us. And today we are the only humans that survive. So, yeah, that's the complicated back and forth scenario. Proud Odia says, 10 years ago, when I traveled out of states, people used to say, where is Odisha? Is it in West Bengal? No one knew about Odisha, but today Odisha is leading in iron, bauxite, steel with large strategic coastline. What's my opinion? I I think Odisha is one of the nicest states in the country. I think the Odia people are some of the nicest people in the whole of the country. Okay, it is said some states we have people who are not so nice. Okay, I'm not naming anybody, but I think Odias are the nicest people in the country. Very gentle, very civilized, very kind. So, and maybe I have some kind of bias towards Odisha because I was born in Odisha. Okay, but I think Odisha. I am not Odia, but I was born in Odisha. So I think, and the last time I was in Odisha was when I was 2 months old. After that, I've not been in Odisha. But I think Odisha is wonderful. It's Odisha is Kalinga. It's the ancient heartland of our civilization. Before Patliputra became a thing, Kalinga was the thing. And the great people of Kalinga, they Indianized the whole of Suvarnabhumi in Southeast Asia. Long before the Cholas went there. It was the people of Kalinga who slowly, gradually brought Indian civilization all across Suvarnabhumi, all across Southeast Asia. It was because of Odisha this happened. Because of the travels to Suvarnabhumi, to Vietnam, the kingdom of Funan, which was founded by an Indian king and a local princess and so on. That Indian king was from Kalinga, of course. His name was Kondinya, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and so on. So I think Odisha has a glorious history. I think the Bay of Bengal should be called the Sea of Kalinga. Okay. And Odisha has tremendous natural resources, tremendous natural beauty and all. So I would love to see Odisha prosper tremendously. And I think there's tremendous potential in Odisha. Okay. Shihaji, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Shiva Rajput says, what sources do you follow for unbiased and accurate geopolitical analysis? Also, what sources can we rely on ourselves, since truth always lies in the gray areas, not just the black and the white? I look at the world from a 360-degree perspective. I look at all sources. See, when I do the analysis for my geostrategy episodes, in a week, I typically go through more than 1,000 primary sources, pieces of news. And these are not just Times of India or such stuff. I look at news from all over the world. I look at the news sources of our enemies, which are guaranteed to be biased against us. I look at that. I look at Pakistani news sources sometimes. I look at American news sources. I look at UK-based news sources. I look at French news sources. I will look at Japanese news sources. I will look at Chinese news sources, Russian news sources. I will look at sources from Africa. I will look at financial news sources. I look at everything. I will look at Al Jazeera. I look at everything. But I know what bias each of these has because of my experience. So I know what the truth could be. And once you look at a certain developing story from all these different perspectives, at least from me, I know what really is happening. That's how I do it. But I can do it because I understand each of these sources, what their specific biases are. So what sources can you rely on yourselves? Well, I would say look at everything, but be aware that everything has some bias. Okay, and the truth always lies somewhere in between, especially in the present day geopolitical climate, because every news item is actually a narrative. The truth is not entirely there in the news item. The news item that you're going to read is going to put forth a certain perspective on what's happening. It's not going to tell you what exactly is happening. It's going to be covered and colored with some bias. So you have to understand, recognize that, and over time you can get a sense of what each news outlet's biases are, and then you can do a better job of understanding what's really happening. Raghav Menon says, I read a PCM genetic study from 2009 showing Shia Muslims in Lucknow carry haplogroups typically found in Greek and Levantine populations. What happened in the past? Well, unless I read the study, I can't really tell you. But of course, look, the history of human beings is a history of migrations. So it's possible. Look, Plenty of Indians will have a little bit of this, a little bit of that foreign DNA. So what? Doesn't mean we're not Indians. If you go to if you go to Turkey and look at their DNA, how much of it is Turkic DNA? So look, people have always, India has always attracted immigrants. India doesn't attract immigrants today because India is just standing back on its feet after 1000 years of colonization and foreign occupation. So India is still in a state of devastation, whether you realize it or not. But before the foreign occupation happened, let's say in 800 AD, 900 AD, India was a gloriously rich place. And a place like that will always attract foreign immigrants. If you look back at various cemeteries from the Harappan era, the so-called Harappan era, you will find cemeteries full of first-generation immigrants who came from somewhere else, and you can tell that from the analysis of their bones, the kind of food and water they've ingested. It is different from what the locals, their makeup, their bone makeup is like. So India has always attracted people from outside. Okay, and if you look at the skeletons of the Rupkund Lake, where two disastrous events have happened over almost 2000 years, you will see a large number of people, pilgrims who would come there, were from somewhere in Europe, in the Caucasus region or something. So it's always been like that. Lots of foreigners. India has always attracted lots of foreigners, and maybe some of them settled down over here. And yeah, so the genetic studies will bring out these old histories that people have forgotten, right? Sachin Khandelwal says, what's really happening in China? With rumors again swirling that Xi is being replaced. China plus US to rearm Pakistan again for rematch in Operation Sindoor. Listen, I don't pay attention to rumors. If something happens, we'll look into it. I have not seen any of these rumors. Every few months, they start the rumor that Xi Jinping is being replaced and there's a coup in China and all that. I remember 2023, there were again these rumors of Xi Jinping being replaced, and I had put out a video saying that Xi Jinping is not going anywhere. When all the Indian YouTubers, the great YouTubers, were saying, yes, Xi Jinping ka coup ho gaya hai. So, look, let's not pay attention to rumors. If something happens, we'll look into that. China, US to rearm Pakistan again for rematch and Operation. They will love to do that. The Chinese and the Americans see eye to eye when it comes to Pakistan. Maybe Israel also sees eye to eye with them when it comes to Pakistan. So they would like to rearm Pakistan and maybe do a rematch, Operation Sindoor, in the future. Mr. 88 says, Pakistan's nuclear doctrine doesn't make sense to me. When reading from their strategic perspective, what's the real message they're trying to send to India? Well, I haven't studied Pakistan's nuclear doctrine. Do they have a document out in public what the nuclear doctrine is? I don't know. Their strategic perspective is that they need this great enemy called India, and they can then use that to acquire foreign investment from nations who don't want India to grow, which is nations like the US and China. They always want a foreign master. They are a mercenary nation, and their nuclear doctrine is that it's a doctrine of nuclear blackmail. We will keep on doing terrorism, but if you attack us, we'll use nuclear weapons. That's the nuclear doctrine. And well, that's what it is. I don't know beyond that what to say. What's the real message they're trying to send to India? The real message is that of nuclear blackmail, as far as I see. I don't know if any other message they're trying to send India. And of course, that has fallen flat on its face during Operation Sindoor, because we hit them so hard and all their nuclear red lines, which they had been tom-tomming about, were crossed. And yet, what? Shihaji says, if Hindu gods exist, why they didn't know medical science? I don't know how to answer this question. So, Tarun says, I am a 22-year-old software engineer. I don't see any future except climbing corporate ladder. I feel I'm not born to work for corporate till 60, good and passionate about maths. Suggest me how to get out of rat race. The corporate ladder. Yeah, it means that you work for a corporation. I don't know what your interests are, but you're gonna now get into the corporate world, and you will do as you're told, and you'll make that part of your life, and you'll make that the primary part of your life. That is the corporate ladder. I've been there. I've been a cyber coolie for a decade. I hated it, and I got out of it. And it was a tough transition, but I got out of it. So yeah, I also knew that was not for me to work as a slave, essentially a high-paid slave for somebody who will tell you what to do. You always have a master to serve until you're 60, and then you sit down and die eventually. That's not for me. And I suppose you also see it that way. You're passionate about math and so on. How to get out of the rat race? The only viable way to get out of the rat race is to be financially self sufficient, which means you need to have your own source or sources of income that are pretty much redundant, which could mean that you start a business of your own. Well, I'm not sure if that's something that you are good at, because you need to learn how to do a business, how to run a business, and that comes with complexities of its own. That also can turn you into a slave of your own work if you're not careful, unless you hire people and have them do the work for you, which is very hard to do because it's very hard to find the good people in this country, in India, and so on. But if you don't want to work for somebody until you're 60, you need to create your own sources of income, whatever they are. How do you create sources of income? You have to look into your strengths. What are your strengths and aptitudes? What are you really good at? And then you leverage that to provide some kind of value to society, and in return for that, society gives you some value back in the form of money. That's generally how you do it. It's not easy. The easiest thing in the world is to get a salary. It's like an anesthetic. You get a salary every month. You go and work. You work, and you get a salary every month, and you're safe and you're taken care of until you're not. Yeah. So if you want to get out of the rat race, you have to take risks. It's not easy. It's not for everybody. But you have to find what you're good at, and you have to leverage that to get your sources of income. Uh, James says, "Sir, remember you speak English. Thank the Brits." Well, to hell with you, Brits, who imposed this abomination of a foreign language in us. And we shall reject this foreign language. People like me are mentally colonized, but hopefully others won't be. Cheerio. Cursory clips. Thank you, sir. Okay, James. Manikandan Venkataraman says, "Thank you for your insight." Okay, thank you. I listened to your podcast and your courses from an Indic Dharmic view. Final question: what should we do to upskill/navigate both the AI and quantum computing era? Well, what should we do to upskill, navigate the AI and quantum computing era? Look, you don't navigate it; you embrace it with both arms. You embrace it wholeheartedly. You make it part of who you are, and you leverage that to leapfrog the world. You can't run from it. You can't hide for it. The technology is here now. It's not going to go away anywhere. It's here to stay. So India needs to become an early adopter of AI and quantum computing, right? And I think we are on the right track. It looks like we are now. After everything changed after Operation Sindoor. So now we are like, our government officials are like, wow, we need to do all this now. Come on, get going on a war footing. AI, quantum computing, sab kar lo, karo. That's where we are. So I think India will do that. And as individuals, if you are in IT, if you're in software, if you're in programming, you need to learn all this stuff, right? Machine learning, all of that stuff. Quantum computing, it's a technology. It's not machine learning. But artificial intelligence, if you want to be an artificial intelligence developer and do all of that, you need to learn machine learning and all that, which is a pretty tedious thing, but you do that. It'll take you like 2-3 years to go through all the coursework and so on. So yeah, so India needs to embrace this wholeheartedly. India needs to become an early adopter. India needs to leverage this instead of running from it. Ankita, madam, thank you so much. Thank you. Financial advisor says, this isn't a geopolitical question, but I would be deeply indebted if you take this. Okay. What is the course of action you take when you realize that your parents don't respect you? Wow. And are knowingly joining hands with those who have tried to malign you? Well, I'm sorry that that could be the case for you. That is deeply unfortunate. Okay. So look, first of all, things happen. Things don't always go your way. Sometimes life takes you in such territory. What do you do, for example, if you have parents who don't respect you and are knowingly joining hands with those who are trying to malign you? Well, first of all, you never do anything disrespectful to your parents. Okay? You never do anything that will hurt or harm your parents. That's number one. Whatever it is, they are your parents and they raised you in whatever way they could or they did. Okay, maybe it was good, maybe it was not good, whatever it is. But they are your parents, and in our culture, we never do anything that disrespects or harms our parents. So what can you do then? You have to take steps which are in self-defense, right? Forget about not respecting you, but if they are doing something that will harm you and they're joining hands with those who have maligned you, then you first of all say, don't disrespect them, don't harm them, don't do anything that will hurt them, but you need to put some distance between you and them, right? That's what I would say. So put yourself in a position where they can no longer hurt you or harm you, is all I will say. Maybe move to a different city and I don't know how you do it is up to you. This is a very unusual thing, but yeah, take adequate measures, self-defense measures that will ensure that nobody, whether the ones who have maligned you or your parents themselves, could harm you in some way. And of course, this will cause you mental distress and all. So you will need some kind of support from other people. Maybe I don't know if you have a spouse or something, or I don't know. Yeah. So I would say the gist of what I'm saying is that don't do anything that will disrespect or hurt your parents, but take adequate measures for self-defense in case they are doing something that will hurt you or harm you in some way. That's all I would say, sir. All the best. All the best. I'm sorry that you're in this situation. All the best. Pawan Sri Harsha says, thank you, sir. Thank you. The respect I get as a research analyst is because of you. Really? Well, okay. Well, thank you so much, Pawan Sri Harsha ji. Thank you so much. I'm glad whatever I do has given you some value, and do well in life, sir. Do well. Rohit ji, thank you so much. I love that little Groot. I am Groot. Yeah, that was a good movie, wasn't it? I am Groot. One of the original ones. Raghav Shinde says, I don't think all polytheistic societies were like Hinduism. Many, like Arab paganism or Habshaism, were distinct indigenous systems rooted in their own lands, and they had no connections with Vedic Hinduism. I have never made the claim that everything was connected to Vedic Hinduism. Do you think that Tengrism, for example, what is called in English Tengrism, do you think it had any connection with Vedic Hinduism? It did not. It had no connection to Vedic Hinduism. It evolved entirely separately, entirely independently. But as a polytheistic culture, it has so many characteristics that are interchangeable with Hinduism. Do you think Shinto in Japan had any original initial connection with Vedic Hinduism? None whatsoever. It evolved entirely independently and separately from Hinduism in Japan. But once again, it has so many characteristics that are actually pretty interchangeable with Hinduism. So polytheistic societies have common elements that are interchangeable, but they also have distinct elements that are not interchangeable. So in some cases, you will have polytheistic cultures that are very different. In some cases, you will have polytheistic cultures that evolved differently, thousands of kilometers apart, but are super similar. Like, for example, Shinto and Hinduism, super similar. The Shinto writers used to say that Buddhism, I mean, when they compared Hinduism, Buddhism, and Shinto, they said Buddhism is not like Shinto, but Hinduism is like Shinto, way more like Shinto. So you have Japanese literature that speaks about this. And once again, when it comes to, for example, Tengrism, they have elements that are very similar to Hinduism, ancient Hinduism. They have Sky Father and Earth Mother. Sky Father is Tengri, Earth Mother is Umai. In ancient Hinduism, we had the Sky Father Dyosh Pitru, and we had the Earth Mother Prithvi Mata. Same thing. We also had the reverence of ancestors and the reverence for forests and trees and all that in very ancient Hinduism. We still have it in even more modern versions of Hinduism. So there's a lot of elements that are common and similar, and that's why these cultures are very, they can syncretize very easily if required. But I'm sure Arab paganism was different. Yeah. So it depends. It depends on so many different contexts. And please, I have never claimed that all polytheism has roots in Vedic Hinduism. I have never made that claim, okay? In case if that's what you're trying to say. I have never made the claim. I'm not stupid. Meera Ma says, what is good about Israeli agro-technology? Many of our MPs went to study it. Why is it not implemented in arid areas of India? Not sarcasm, trying to understand. Oh, no, of course, not sarcasm. See, Israel is mostly desert land. Okay, a lot of it is desert land. They have some green patches and all, olive trees and kibbutzim and so on. But lot of the land in Israel is arid. So what they do is they have excellent desalination technology in which they take water from the sea, desalinate that, dump the brine back into the ocean, and take the fresh water out of it. And that can be used for agriculture and so on. And they have developed very good desalination technology. I suppose you can even drink that water. So that's one example of something you can use in India, in arid parts of India. For example, in Rajasthan, in Kutch, or wherever else where you have a lack of water or sufficient water. So I believe lots of our MPs and chief ministers have gone, studied that. I don't know why it's not implemented in various parts of India. I think the government of India needs to answer it. If we have sent MPs and chief ministers who have gone and who have been studying this for more than 2 decades, what happened? Why has this not been implemented in India? I'm sure the Israelis are happy to sell that technology to India. That's not a big deal. It's not a jet engine technology. They can sell it. Uh, so that's one example of what's good. I'm sure there are other examples of Israeli technology which would also involve how to have good agricultural output in arid land areas. So I'm sure they have other things also that they have been doing, and I'm sure we can implement those in India. But the one example I know of is this desalination technology, in which you can take water from the sea, desalinate it, and use that water for maybe drinking purposes or agriculture. That should definitely be implemented in places like Kutch, for example, that have a sea coast but are very arid. So I'm sure that can be done. So why is it not implemented? I think the government of India needs to answer. A lot of this in the government of India, so much money is used for all these things. MPs going and studying various other countries and the technologies, but then what happens? I'm not sure what happens. Franz Beckenbauer, the German colonel of football, says, have you read about the Battle of Colchel, Kingdom of Travancore against the Dutch? How powerful were the Dutch? Is this battle caused their downfall? I've not read this, sorry. Yeah, my interest in Indian history goes back to ancient Indian history, like really ancient. And that's not studying history, it's kind of researching history. I don't know about the Battle of Colchel. I am not interested at all. I have never been interested in the colonial period, which I've always seen as a time of misery. I've always been interested in victories and greatness. So I've always wanted to study the part of the period of history that is not very, very well known. So I don't know about the Battle of Colchel, the Kingdom of Travancore against Dutch. I'm sure it was great. I'm sure these battles were great and we fought very well, but I am not aware of the details. So I am very sorry. I'm not able to answer this question. I've not studied this. Samir Bhagwat says, recent Chinese aggression against India, art of war. Which Chinese aggression are you referring to? It's been a while since we had Galwan. Beyond that, now they are essentially siding with Pakistan. Art of war, everything is art of war. Art of war is not some great book, okay? It's a book of stratagems. It's a book of tricks. It's not a book of strategy. It's not a book of geostrategy. It's a book of tricks, stratagems. Let me Google in case. Well, let's Google it. What's the difference between strategy and stratagem? Okay. The Art of War is a book of stratagems. It's a book of tricks, like I say. Okay. Strategy versus stratagem. There we have it. So, strategy is a broad, overarching plan to achieve a long-term goal. And a stratagem is a specific, often clever tactic or trick used within that strategy. So, like I said, stratagems are tricks. The Art of War is a book of tricks. It's not a book of grand strategy. So the West has overhyped this Art of War by Sun Tzu. Who did Sun Tzu fight, by the way, if he ever existed? He is said to have existed about 2,500 years ago. Well, who did Sun Tzu fight if he existed? He fought his fellow Chinese. He never fought foreigners, and so on. Prashant says, is Boeing too big to be taken to court if proven? I think it's about US law. I think anybody can be taken to court. But if there are too many vested interests and if too many American politicians have their pockets being filled by Boeing, because America is the world's most corrupt country, in that case, nothing will ever happen. If a lot of US politicians are in the pockets of Boeing, which is likely, then nothing will happen to Boeing. They'll keep on manufacturing substandard aircraft, and unfortunately, more such things may happen in case this had something to do with that. But yeah, so in the US, it's like that. Okay, everybody is interconnected, especially politicians are connected with the various companies, and they are financed by the companies, which means that they will take care of the companies when it comes to forming laws, and when it comes to lawsuits and all that. So I think Boeing will be okay. Memes Coder says, tell us about the history of sex and their importance. I don't know much about the history of sex. Okay, I've not studied the 10 gurus and the origins and all that. I know that the Sikh kingdom was a big kingdom. Some people call it the Sikh empire. It wasn't large enough to actually be called an empire, in my opinion. I'm just look at the geography. But their greatest king was Maharaja Ranjit Singh, truly great man. He did fight the invaders and kick them out of Kashmir, the Pashtuns, the Abdalis, etc. Great man. And he was the one great king they had. Of course, they had many other great warriors and all that. And the Sikh people are not an ethnicity. It's just a religious panth of Dharma. And that has so once Maharaja Ranjit Singh passed away, the kingdom disintegrated very rapidly, and the British took over. And after that, well, you know how things have been. Being enlightened, thank you so much, sir or ma'am. Thank you. Cursory clips, thank you once again. Kajoro Bitathon says, why are we technologically advancing to a world where humanity is obsolete? Is calamity or global economic meltdown the only thing that could slow or reverse technological advancement, like the Bronze Age collapse? Well, I'm not sure if humanity needs to be obsolete, or if technology should necessarily or will necessarily make humanity obsolete. What we are going towards is, we are now at a point, maybe an inflection point, where machines are able to do things that only humans could do in the past. So we have artificial intelligence, which thus far seems to be prediction machines, okay, that can predict the next most likely character that needs to be output. That's the large language models, LLMs, but they are becoming increasingly more and more sophisticated. Apple claims that they are not really reasoning models. Some of them, they just still statistically putting out the most likely next token and all that. But these are very powerful systems now, and they can really solve big problems, possibly scientific problems. And so on and so forth. All of that is happening. So a lot of human intellectual capital is now being replaced by artificial intelligence. And if you see that in the light of the developments and advances we are now seeing in robotics, and if you marry the two technologies together, AI and robotics, then it's a completely revolutionary inflection point in human history. So very soon you will have intelligent robots doing stuff that humans used to do. So yeah, that could make a lot of human labor redundant. It doesn't mean that humanity needs to become obsolete. So it will all depend. So the problem is this, that most of the world depends on the system of capitalism, that you have to do labor in order to have wages, right? And if you don't have a job, which means you can't contribute labor to somebody, then you have no right to any wages, which means you will starve. That's kind of the system. And there are fail-safe mechanisms like government takes care of you, and there's this basic income that they can give you, universal basic income. That's a concept that's being floated around, and so on. So yeah, because it's the technology is not making humanity obsolete. It is the system of capitalism that requires you to contribute labor, without which you don't get money. And then money is the currency by which you acquire goods and services. So that's why, and food. So that's the problem. The problem is capitalism. I am not saying Marxism is the solution, by the way. I'm not saying that. Don't look at the world from in this bipolar perspective, black or white, capitalism or communism. If you say capitalism is bad, then Marxism and communism is right. I am not saying that. There has to be other ways. So it's the system that is making humanity obsolete potentially. It's not technology that's doing it. It's capitalism that's doing it. So what could slow down? See, why do we need to reverse technological advancement? I think technological advancement is fantastic. I mean, imagine technology takes care of everything. all the human labor, need for human labor is gone, and humans can finally relax and sit in peace and do something higher thinking and higher creativity and all that. That can only happen if that condition is no longer there. That unless you do hard labor, you don't get any wages, right? So what's the solution? Is the solution a universal basic income? Maybe that's not the right solution, because that once again comes under the ambit of capitalism, in which case most people get a universal basic income, bare survival, and some people become super rich and powerful. Once again, that's not right. So we need some other system. The solution is not slowing down or reversing technology development. The solution is not something else like collapse, the bronze age collapse. The solution is to develop some kind of system that respects human life and the value of human life, and is not a capitalistic system without becoming a Marxist or communist system. Some kind of solution needs to be found. So it's a very interesting question that you have posed over here. Shashank says humans are known to have originated in Africa, but is it possible for species to be born in such desert climate, or is it different, or was it different at that point in time? That's a good question you asked, sir. It's a good question. I'm glad you asked this question. Let's go to the map. Let us go to the map and try and find out what the deal is. Great question, Shashank. So look, so where did humanity evolve? It is said to have emerged somewhere in Eastern Africa. Somewhere in Eastern Africa. Maybe Ethiopia, maybe Kenya, maybe Tanzania, maybe somewhere around this region, okay? Somewhere here. And much of this is today deserted. You're right. Look at the satellite images. See, look at that. Barren. There is some green, but there's a lot of brown, a lot of red, which is red rock, and so on. So as you can see, there's a dearth of water and all that. So the question that Shashank is rightfully asking is that, and if you look at other parts of Africa, I mean, look at the amount of desert that we have here. Who survives? Who can survive? Even here you have the Namib Desert and all that. So the question is, how can a species like humanity originate in such a drastically harsh climate? And the question is, was the climate different at that point in time? Well, you see, the climate has always changed. About 80,000 years ago or something, this entirety of this desert over here, the Sahel region desert, the Sahara desert, it was green, it was lush green. You had lakes over here. You had forests all over the place. It was completely lush green. And then desertification happened. So the point is that, what is this nice place? Some kind of a lake. The point is that you have these climatic cycles, desertification and afforestation, and again desertification, again afforestation. This happens over and over again. And in the past, you had forests in the parts of Africa that are currently all desert. And once again, let me tell you something else. When the out of Africa migration happened, which is said to have happened about 80,000 or so years ago, plus or minus, it is said to have happened over here, the Strait of Bab al-Mandeb. Okay, so it's about, I don't know what. It's not very wide. It's less than 30 kilometers wide, and it is said that the human migration happened from here, out of Africa. So if you look at the Arabian Peninsula today, it's all desert, right? But about 70, 80,000 years ago, all of the coastal regions were forested. So the migration happened along the forested coastal regions, and there was probably a crossing of the Strait of Hormuz over here. And once again, the coast of Balochistan was all green, and the humans, they followed the greenery until they reached this gigantic green place, which is the Indian subcontinent. And that's where humanity first settled properly. So today, if you look at the Arabian Peninsula and all that, it's all desert. So you'll say, how did humans migrate in these regions? But because it was different at the time. You see? So the answer to your question, Shashank, is that the climate has always kept changing. Climate change is a natural process, plus today a human-mediated process. So it was different at the time. And humanity evolved over millions of years. The human-chimpanzee split happened, 2-3 million years ago. And we've had various kinds of archaic humans who developed over time, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo this, Homo that, Homo heidelbergensis, and today we have Homo sapiens, and so on. So, um, Shruti says, I'm curious about if you're doing content creation full time or also finding time for theoretical physics. I find it difficult to manage my time. I'm not doing a lot of theoretical physics these days. Yeah, it's something I need to return to eventually. Not right now. Yep, not much time for that right now, unfortunately. And I would love to have time only for that, actually. Being Enlightened says, Chhatrapati Shambhaji Maharaj's achievements and sacrifice commitments. Look, once again, I have not studied Maratha history that much, so I will not be able to give you details about that. Philosophic Shadow says, is doing CFA a good career option for a 19-year-old? What is CFA? Let me Google what is CFA. What is CFA? CFA. What is CFA? Chartered Financial Analyst. Okay, is doing a chartered financial analyst thing good career option? Hey, it's money. I think I think there's a lot of money in that career. So if money is what you want, I would say go for it, sir. You'll make a good amount of money in that. Anything that has to do something to do with finance and so on, I think there's a lot of money in that. Okay, so if that's what you want, then I think it's a good option. Gary says, what are your thoughts on the Sikh Empire? Look, once again, like I said, I have not studied the history of the Sikh Empire in any detail at all, but I think it was a great, rather short-lived empire, but a great empire. The one great king the Sikh Empire had was the great Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He he totally punished the Pashtuns for what they had done in Punjab. In Kashmir, he liberated Kashmir from the Pashtuns. He brought Dharma back to the Kashmir region. He also punished the Pashtuns by taking some Pashtun territory, which today is the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region. The border of the Sikh Empire, the western border of the Sikh Empire, is the present day border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And it is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's conquest of the present day Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, which is the root cause of the territorial dispute between Afghanistan and Pakistan. But overall, I think the Sikh Empire was a brilliant, unfortunately short-lived empire. A lot of good things in it. One of the great kings, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and he was a very good king, no question about it. Very valorous, great warrior. He had a very meritocratic approach, I believe, to governance and the military affairs. He had many great warriors who fought for him, and unfortunately, after his death, didn't go well at all. And within a decade, the whole empire had collapsed. The British had destroyed it. Cursory Clips says, do you think Israel controls the US? USS Liberty incident. The USS Liberty incident happened during the Six-Day War, right? 67 or somewhere around that time, in which the Israelis attacked and struck a US warship, the USS Liberty, with missiles, maybe airstrikes. I don't know what it was. Many soldiers, many sailors died apparently, and so on. So yeah, that's something that happened, and Israel apologized and paid some restitution, and that was it. And there was no action that was taken by the US against Israel. Do I think that Israel controls the US? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Mugiwara says, Namaste, sir. My top 10 most influential persons ever. Okay, who are the most influential people of all time? In ancient times, you had Lord Ram, Lord Krishna for sure. Gautam Buddha, sure, no question. Zarathustra, definitely. Alexander, Julius Caesar, yes, I would say, still remembered, whether you like it or not, yes. If Mr. Christ existed, then he definitely was a very influential person, Mr. Jesus Christ. If the who else? I would one has to say the Prophet Muhammad also, no question about it. The second largest religion today, all because of his teachings. So there is that. And who else do we have? Most influential persons. How many did I give you? Most influential. And then in the 20th century, you have musicians who become super influential. The Beatles, super influential, and so on. So something went wrong in the 20th century, and people started worshipping entertainers, Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and so on. Who else could be the most influential persons? I'm sure I'm missing a few, but if you put me on the spot like this, you'll get a few answers. So maybe, yeah, that. Surya Pawan says, don't leave YouTube, sir. Make videos until 2050. 2050. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. But anyway, thank you. 2050. Vinay Joshi says, can micro needling bring lost hairs back? I have absolutely no idea. No idea, sorry. QWERTY, etc. says, if humanity started from just one place and only a couple of people, inbreeding over generations would cause genetic issues and more diseases. So I'm sure it was not just a couple of people. The story of Adam and Eve, it doesn't make sense, right? Obviously, from a scientific perspective. It would start from one place, but it would start with one community. And it would be a sizable community of individuals, apes. So maybe you had in Africa, in the Rift Valley region, a population of, let's say, 20,000 apes, who were the ancestors, the common ancestors of today's humans and chimpanzees. And then over a few thousand years, the Rift Valley went wider, maybe over a period of maybe 10, 20, 30, 50,000 years, maybe 100,000 years. And slowly these populations, 10,000, drifted apart. And then you had a population of 10,000 who are related to each other and who are evolving differently from that other 10,000 population. And that's how maybe from that population of, let's say, 10,000 people, hypothetically, humanity started. It would not start with a couple of people. It will start with a community, a group of people, a group of individuals, not just 100, 200. It will be a few thousand at least, maybe 10,000. That way, inbreeding will not cause any big problem. The population density will be low, and over time some genetic drift and migrations will happen, and so on. So that's how it works. It doesn't start with two people. It starts with a community of individuals. Kushraghav, thank you, sir. Thank you. And Kushraghav again, what are your views on pilot hiring around the world? I am planning ATPL in 2034 from Irao. Will it be a good time? What will be the visa situation? I don't know what is ATPL. I don't know what is Irao. Let me see what these things are. Okay, what is ATPL? ATPL. What is ATPL? Airline Transport Pilot License. Highest form of pilot certification required for pilots who act as captain and first officer in commercial airlines, and so on and so forth. What is Irao? ERAU. What is Irao? Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Where is Embry-Riddle? Where is it? It is Daytona. Is it Florida? Is it? Okay, Daytona Beach, Florida. Okay, fine. Okay, so that's the plan that you have. So what's my views on pilot hiring across the world? I have no idea about this industry and what the situation is like. 2034 you planning? Why not next year? Why not this year? Why 9 years down the line? Or maybe you're very young, perhaps. Okay. Will it be a good time? What about the visa situation? I have no idea. 10 years is too long a time to make any kind of forecasting. The visa situation may not be great. The Americans are cracking down on all foreigners. At least the Trump regime is doing that. They don't like foreigners. They want all foreigners out. They are all MAGA, make America great again, that sort of thing. So I don't know what the visa situation will be like in 2034. I think it's too far away for us to make any kind of forecast or predictions. I think we definitely will need pilots. I don't think aircraft will become automated by that time in 9-10 years. Maybe it's a little too early for that, especially when it comes to transporting hundreds of people. You can't have an AI and a robot doing that. So hopefully pilots will still be required. But I think it's 2034 is too far away for me to make any kind of forecast. It's just too far away. Mr. Sid says, what is that one geopolitical event that would change the world order completely? What should India do to grow and become more powerful? One geopolitical event that would change the world completely. It's a technological breakthrough of some kind. It's always going to be a technological breakthrough of some kind. Right now, the US is leading in AI, in robotics. China is trying its best to catch up. It's at number two right now. But what if a nation somewhere develops some kind of technology that is completely different from everybody else? And it gives them a staggering unfair advantage over everybody else. Let's say you develop anti-gravity. Okay, just a wild example. Let's say you develop anti-gravity, which gives you the ability to instantaneously, on demand, put hundreds of spacecraft into orbit. How about that? And so you suddenly leapfrog NASA, you leapfrog SpaceX, you leapfrog everybody, and you can have bases on Mars in 2 years, just like that. No need for the chemical rockets, which are dangerous and which can explode. You just have anti-gravity. You just make a proper, well-sealed spacecraft, and you just use the anti-gravity mechanism to go all the way into orbit and beyond orbit and go wherever you want. That would possibly even give you access to asteroids and their minerals and all that very quickly. If, let's say, hypothetically, India develops that, then all of a sudden, India is in space, India dominates space, India can take out anybody's satellites that we want on demand, and so on. So it's always going to be some kind of technological breakthrough that comes from nowhere, that will change the world order completely. Nothing else will. It's always going to be a technological breakthrough. Okay? Right, where was I? Let me find where I was. Okay, so interesting question, sir. Varun says Pachamama of the Andes translates to Green Mother, goddess of well-being, nature. It's same as Pachai Amman of Tamil Nadu. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Too many parallels. There are so many parallels like that in the world. Pachamama means Earth Mother, not Green Mother. How do I know this? Because one of the founding fathers of the Inca Empire, he called himself Pachacuti. What does Pachacuti mean? The earth shaker. Pacha means earth. Pachacuti means earth shaker. Similarly, Pachamama means earth mother, not green mother. And mama is a Spanish word. It's not an Inca word. Pacha is an Inca word. So there are these coincidences and similarities. It doesn't mean necessarily anything at all. Okay. I mean, one of their kings was called Viracocha, and Indians will say, oh, it is Virochana, Virochana. Let's be a little more mature. That's not how it is. So I disagree with this. Okay. Pacha Mama does not mean something like something Pacha Aman or whatever it is. Okay. Let's where was I? Which question was I on? 1 second. Give me a second. Okay, here it is. All right. Okay, Nay Utica says lots of youth in India waste time doom scrolling reels, video games. Millions of them spend 10 plus years preparing and writing for exams in the hopes of getting Sarkari Naukri. What will make them embrace reality? I don't know. What will make them? So these are two very different things. The doom scrolling and reels and all, that's one thing. And this spending your decade of life preparing for exams and writing exams over and over again, IAS or whatever. Every year, how many IAS positions are open? About 1,000, 2,000, and hundreds of thousands, millions of Indians try for that. And at the end of the day, you end up being a Sarkari Naukar, right? You end up taking orders from a politician. But you get this feeling that, I'm a bureaucrat, I'm a powerful person, and so on. So that's a different story from the reels and doom scrolling and video games and all that. Totally different. Why do Indians want to have this Sarkari Naukri, this government job? Because it's a job for life. No matter what you do, you're going to have a job until you're 60 something. And there's the possibility of making tremendous amounts of money allegedly through alleged means. You know what the alleged means are, right? So that's why lots of Indians want this. What's the solution to that? The solution to that is to have lots of opportunities in all kinds of sectors beyond the government jobs. So everybody as a child has some dream, right? Somebody wants to become a pilot, somebody wants to become an astronaut, somebody wants to become a scientist or doctor or something. But then once you reach a certain age, reality stares in the face, and you have to become either a corporate slave or you have to become a government servant. Very few options. So if you have lots of options in society, lots of different kinds of jobs that are available, and you don't have to stick to one job for the rest of your life, you can choose, you can change careers if you want after every 2 3 years. Then people will not feel the need to become a sarkari babu, a government servant. And the other thing that needs to happen is a war on corruption, so that aspect also goes away. That's one thing. About reels and video games and all, I don't know what will be done about that. um that's a whole different story. What can you make people embrace reality for? I think, um in today's day and age, see, every generation is different. People who grew up in the 60s, they had a different life from those who grew up in the 80s, and they had a different life from those who grew up in the 2000s, and they have a different life from those who are growing up right now. So every generation is different, the technological paradigm is different, and today is the age of the screens, right? There's nothing you can do about it. So I think it's something we have to accept, that today's kids are gonna be hooked to screens. Of course, it's great if they spend some time outside and do some actual playing and having fun. Imagine today you to force kids to go out and play. In the past, you had to force kids to come home and study. Today, it's the opposite. But some kind of solution needs to be found. Maybe some kind of time limit on screens and all that. Perhaps I think it's something parents have to impose on their own individually. Animesh says, as a busy tech worker, how can I build intellectual acumen and broad knowledge to one day pursue what I truly love? Well, first of all, thank you, sir. Um, you're a busy tech worker. A lot of time you spend doing whatever you do as a tech worker, but you want to build intellectual acumen and the broad and deep knowledge that's required to someday pursue whatever it is that you truly love. I don't know what that is, but okay, maybe it's something that needs a lot of knowledge, broad as well as deep. What do you do? What you do, sir, is you find some time in your life beyond working and sleeping and whatever else you do, maybe an hour or two every day that you spend absorbing this knowledge, gaining this knowledge. And the only way to gain knowledge is to read. The only real way to gain knowledge is to read. Let me be very, 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 very honest with you all, okay? I do podcasts, don't I? I've done more than 90 podcasts as a host of a podcast. So I'm a podcast host. I've also been a podcast guest on, I don't know, hundreds of podcasts. You will never gain deep knowledge from a podcast. Okay, I'm giving you a very honest truth here. A podcast is something that will perhaps introduce you to new knowledge. And maybe it's something that will start your fascination about a certain topic or a field or an area of knowledge or a domain of knowledge. But if you watch 100 podcasts about quantum computing, you will never learn quantum computing. If you watch 100 podcasts about theoretical physics, you will never really learn good theoretical physics. So a podcast is a good introduction to a subject. It can also be good entertainment if you want to be entertained and you like certain topics. But you can never learn a subject in great depth. So what you have to do, sir, is you have to read. You have to read. Reading is difficult. Reading can be really difficult. It can be really taxing on the mind. But the only way to gain deep knowledge is by reading and perhaps even writing. So that's what you have to do. If you want to build the intellectual acumen and broad knowledge and perhaps deep knowledge to pursue something that you truly love in the future, you have to invest an hour or two every day. Somehow you have to find the time, or maybe a certain amount of hours per week you have to find to do the hard work of acquiring the knowledge and the information. That's what you have to do. Okay, Animesh, all the best, sir. CSP TV says, how many missile boats does our Navy need right now? They are building 6, by the way. That's a great question. I'm a big fan of missile boats. A missile boat is a super cheap way of delivering missiles to where they need to be delivered. So let's say, and a missile boat doesn't have to be very expensive. I suppose you can build a missile boat for, let's say, $20 million. A missile boat that can have 3 BrahMos missiles on it. You can engineer it properly in such a way that it will cost you maximum $20 million, including the engine, including everything. And it doesn't have to have very long legs and very long endurance. It can be kind of a coastal beast. Maybe it can have an endurance of, let's say 1,000 kilometers. That sort of legs. Maybe endurance of 30 days if you can replenish it properly. That's plenty for a missile boat. So if you have a missile boat that costs $20 million, not including the BrahMos missiles, then 20 million, and if you'd have 10, it's 200 million. If you have 100, it's 2 billion. 2 billion is not a big amount of money for 100 missile boats, boss. So why not have 100 missile boats? You just spend $2 billion. And of course, each missile boat will have to house 3 BrahMos missiles. I mean, that's a frightening thing if you are an enemy of India. 100 cheap disposable missile boats that can puncture your ships and slice them into pieces. So I think the more the merrier. 6, what is 6? Where's the ambition? What is 6 missile boats? What are we, Sri Lanka? I think we need more. We should have at least 50 submarines, at least 100. I would say 300 missile boats. If I was in charge, I would say 300 missile boats. Of course, I'm sure it's a little excessive. I would say we should have 100 missile boats, okay, and 50 submarines, and other various kinds of other assets. So I would say 100 missile boats, and make sure that none of them costs more than $20 million a piece. So a total of $2 billion, which is not a big amount of money, and you get 100 scary, dangerous assets. Well, what else can you ask for? Phonography says, have you read Carl Jung? What are my thoughts? I haven't read Carl Jung. Sorry. I haven't had the time to read Carl Jung. That's a very Jordan Peterson-esque thing, right? Carl Jung, the shadow self and all that. I have some kind of awareness of what he wrote about, but I haven't read it in detail. Sorry. Likit Shri Nath says, is a pilot job still in good demand for freshers? I don't know. It's not part of my worldview about what the job market is like and what the demand is like for more pilots in the country. I'm not aware, sir. I'm not aware. Sorry. Arga Pratim Roy, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And Arga Pratim Roy, again, a question. Do you think there's a chance we might have to go up again Israel in the future? Will India be able to counter Mossad sabotage operation in India? Let's not even discuss this. Okay. Israel is not some all-weather friend of India's, but Israel is not an enemy of India's. Whatever I say about Israel, and I point out various things, it's not to portray Israel as an enemy. I don't see Israel as an enemy of India. All I am saying is that Israel is not an unconditional friend of India's. Israel has its own interests, its own agendas, which every nation should have. And we have our own separate interests and agendas. There's a lot of convergence, which is why India and Israel work together. Okay? And there is divergence as well, which is why Israel shows certain kinds of maps of India. And sometimes India votes against Israel in the United Nations. That's how it works. You can't have a convergence of all interests ever for two nations. My point is, I want to wake up Indians who are deluded and they believe that Israel is an unconditional friend of India's. There are no unconditional friends of India. There are no unconditional friends anywhere in geopolitics. That's the message I want to drive home for the Indians who seem to be laboring under various delusions. That's all. But I am not claiming Israel is an enemy of India's. It's not. So let's not discuss this. I mean, that in that scenario you're trying to portray, we would be trying to portray Israel as an enemy, which it is not. All I'm saying is that it has its own agendas and interests, which don't always necessarily align with our interests and agendas. The best example is Pakistan. Israel claims that it despises terrorism. Well, what about Pakistan? Have you taken any action? Have you even made any statements against Pakistan? Not really, right? Not really. And if you have a problem with a terrorist nation having nuclear bombs, what have you done about Pakistan? So clearly, it's not about Pakistan. It's not about terrorism. It's just that they have an issue with Iran. Okay? Vaibhav Shinde says, your thoughts on Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj. From the little that I know about him, I have not studied Maratha history in great detail, but from the little that I know about him, he was one of the greatest and bravest of the Maratha leaders. That's what I can say. Yeah. And obviously a very tragic end that he met, and a very brave man for sure. Very great man, very brave man. Sachin Khandelwal says Iran fired 200 plus ballistic missiles, with many more destroyed along with their proxies. Essentially, Iranians burnt all their oil revenue. How stupid. With many more destroyed along with their proxies. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So, Iran fired more than 200 ballistic missiles. Iran burned all their oil revenue. I'm not sure what the connection is over here. And why is it stupid? If you are hit, if you are targeted by an enemy, you gotta do something about it, right? You got to do something about it. How is it stupid? I'm not sure how it is stupid. So I'm not able to get the logic. Portfolio says, give your thoughts on Iran-Israel strikes. Iran-Israel strikes. So this is something I kind of expected. If you've seen my geostrategy episodes, it is one of the scenarios which has a significant probability of happening. And now it's happened, right? So Israel struck at Israel. Israel struck at Iran. They tried a decapitation strike. They targeted much of Israel's top leadership. Mr. Bagheri apparently has been taken out. They struck at the Natanz nuclear site and so on, exactly as per one of the scenarios that I had forecast, right? And Iran obviously had to hit back. Now it looks like the Israelis had certain assets within Iran that they had positioned there for a very long time, similar to Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb kind of, yeah. And then Iran has hit back, but they haven't hit back really hard. Some of their missiles have been intercepted, some of them have hit the targets and so on. So I think it is just an evolving scenario. It's not something that is done and dusted. I think it's an evolving scenario. And I think Iran's reputation is at stake right now. Iran's credibility is at stake. That Israel has hit them so hard, done what looks like a decapitation strike on their top leadership, and the Iranians haven't been able to do much thus far. So it looks like it's advantage Israel right now, for the time being, where we are right now. Kalki says thoughts on post-World War II order if Axis won. That's a completely hypothetical scenario. So in the post-World War II scenario, if the Axis powers won, then we would either be speaking German or Japanese, right? And Hitler would be the good guy, and Roosevelt and Churchill and Stalin would be the bad guys. So if the Axis had won, that's what the scenario would be like. There is this serial called I don't remember the name of the serial. I haven't watched it. I was aware of it. So there's this serial in which there is this alternative history that's portrayed, in which there's the Germans, the Nazis are ruling the US and that sort of thing. Man in the High Corridors or something like that. I forget the name of the thing. So yeah, it would be a different world. And maybe we would be speaking German or Japanese today. Vaibhav says, what are ghost particles and God's particles? There are no such thing. These are just names that are given by the media to various particles in the standard model of physics. I'm not sure what the ghost particles are. Maybe it's dark matter they're referring to. Others are referring to neutrinos. Neutrinos are particles that interact only via the weak force, the weak nuclear force, and they are extremely unlikely to interact with any ordinary matter, which is why they are very ghostly. And they've got very small masses, and they're neutral oscillations. What's the so-called God particle? It's the Higgs particle, the Higgs boson. And it's a particle that was whose existence was predicted by Peter Higgs and a couple of other scientists, physicists, I think in the 1950s. And it's the particle that imbues mass to the universe, or to various particles in the universe. And it was detected only in the 2010s. So various people have called it the God particle or whatever. It's not a God particle. It's just a name that's given to it, like the Big Bang. Fred Hoyle coined this term Big Bang disparagingly for a rival theory. Fred Hoyle's theory was the steady state theory of the universe, and the rival theory was the expanding universe theory, to which he gave this disparaging name, the Big Bang. But it stuck, and we now call it the Big Bang theory, Big Bang cosmology. So, Sumit says, can government Aravali plantations stop Thar expansion? I have no idea. I haven't looked into it, so I can't say, but Possibly they could. If you, yeah, so can a forest stop the expansion of a desert? I suppose it can. If the forest is robust enough and wide enough, and if it is sustained well with irrigation and all, I suppose it can stop the expansion of a desert. So it's going to be a tug of war tussle kind of thing. It depends on how wide and how robust the forest is and how long it will last. Okay. Memes Coder says, I am from Hindu/Sikh family. We follow both cultures religiously, but I still get bullied by batchmates as Khalistani. I love Bharat, but how to deal? That's terrible. That's horrible. Why would they do that? You're from, so that is so unfortunate. That this is the nonsense that social media has done to people. I mean, I would say that most Sikh people are super patriotic, and the Sikh people are our people. Same blood, same culture, same origin, same everything. How can you, just because of a few rotten apples, you cannot start abusing everybody? So, how to deal with it? Ignore the haters. That's what I would say. And don't let that nonsense change your love for the nation. Okay, for the love of the gods, don't allow that to happen. And please remember, everybody is not like these idiots. That's what I would say. Yeah, so it's just unfortunate that some rotten apples have caused this problem. So I would say to you, don't allow these haters to affect you. Don't allow them to change your love for the country. And this is a passing phase. You don't have to deal with these idiots forever. That's what I would say. So stay strong, and all the best, sir. All the best. Bradley says, there seems to be a wave of conservation and anti-immigration globally. Isn't this the perfect time for India to throw out its illegals without criticism? If we throw out illegals, we will get criticism. But there is never a better time to throw out illegals than now. Anti-immigration, all of that. Yeah, Trump does it. The US is very anti-immigrant and all that. I think whatever happens, we should do it. It's time to start a mass deportation program for all the illegal infiltrators in India. No question. This is the best time for it. There seems to be some of that happening right now, but we need to do it properly, systematically, get rid of all the illegals, all of them. All the illegal Bangladeshis, Rohingyas, cookies, and Pakistanis, and whoever else may be in India, all the illegals who have come in illegally, no matter when they came in, no matter how many decades before they came in, throw them out. Needs to happen. So I agree with you. Geopolitical Dubey says, is playing video games that bad? Why China good at it? I don't think playing video games is bad. Everybody needs some entertainment, some distraction. So there's nothing wrong with it. What can be problematic is if you get hooked to it, if you get addicted to it, and that's all you do. And you do it at the expense of everything else. In that case, it could be a problem. Beyond that, what's wrong with playing video games? There's nothing wrong with playing video games or playing football or playing hockey or playing cricket or whatever. Play. Why China good at it? I am not aware of that. No idea. Raghav Menon says there's an interesting piece of history. Early Alawite, early Shia Muslims from Syria migrated to India as early as the 7th century, seeking refuge from persecution. India has been a haven for diverse communities and faiths. Okay, I am not aware of these Alawites coming to India, but yeah, so it's certainly possible. India has always been a haven for diverse communities and faiths, going back thousands of years. It's always been that way. There's evidence of immigration into India during the so-called Harappan era. You find cemeteries full of first-generation immigrants to India. There is that. Then, when the Romans destroyed the Temple of Solomon in Judea, in Jerusalem, some Jews came all the way to India seeking refuge in India from Roman persecution. For 2,000 years, they've lived in India. Their descendants still live in India today, right? Then we have the Persians who fled from the Arabic invasion of Persia, and they were given refuge in India, in Gujarat, and other places, mostly in Gujarat, I believe. And they are called the Parsis today, and they have been living in India for more than 1400 years. They were given refuge in India. They were never persecuted. Neither the Jews nor the Persians nor anybody else was ever persecuted in India. Jews have been living in India for longer than in Europe. Not one incident of anti-Semitism in India. Nobody even knows what anti-Semitism is. The Jews have never been made to change their religion or culture or way of life. Never, ever, ever, ever. Neither the Persians. The Parsis have lived the way they want as long as they've wanted. They've never been forced to change their lifestyle, their religion, and so on. India has always been the most welcoming, most respectful civilization of all time. Nobody else can come close to this. Anshul says, what's the best way to study scientifically by BTW these? Just read and then write it down like making notes. The latter one is time consuming. That's a multi-step approach to study something scientifically, to learn something properly. You first read. So when I want to learn something new, I first read it quickly, then read it slowly, and whatever I don't understand, I'll look into it in detail. Then I would write down and see. Generally, when I'm learning something, it's something scientific. For example, if you want to learn some new mathematical tool, you first read about it. You read what the process is. You read what the technique is, whether it's a new technique of differential equations or whatever it is. You read how the problems are solved, and then you have to do it yourself. You first look at the solved problems and you try and replicate that on your own without looking there. Then once you get some confidence in an understanding of the technique, then you look at all the unsolved problems, and then you solve them, and then you look at the answers and see if you've got the right answers and so on. That's one example that I can give you. So if it is something else, if it's not math, if it's maybe economics or something else, then you read and then you write it in your own words. Yeah, so it depends on what you're learning, and every domain, every field has its own different approach, ideal approach for learning. But yeah, learning is time consuming, no question about it. Of course, when you're learning history, for example, there's no point reading the history book and then writing it in your own words. I never do that. I have never learned history by writing. Okay, I've only done it by reading. So it depends on what you're trying to learn. But the longer time you spend learning, the better it's going to be for you. Okay. Ramnath is complaining. Yeah, I have not answered this question. Well, when did you ask this question, sir? Have you asked this question before? I haven't seen it. Okay, the question is WTO and GATT agreement good for India regarding trade, tariff, and agriculture? Rajiv Dikshitji was against it. World Trade Organization is an organization. It's not an agreement. Okay, GATT agreement. I think it's obsolete, isn't it? GATT was something from the 1980s. What was GATT? What was GATT? General Agreement on Trades, Tariffs and Trade. It was something that was signed in 1947. How is it relevant today, by the way? That was something from the 20th century. And okay, the Uruguay round of GATT negotiations led to the creation of the World Trade Organization, which formally replaced GATT in 1995. The WTO provides a more comprehensive and institutionalized framework for global trade, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the GATT is something obsolete. It is from the 20th century. The World Trade Organization is obviously something that's going to be controlled by the West, by the US. And as such, it's going to impose Western norms and rules on you. So obviously, it's going to be loaded in favor of the West. And it's going to benefit the West more than India. No question about it. But the world is ruled by the West, so we have to navigate the world according to the rules. That's what China has done, and China has done really well. So we have two choices. We sit down and cry and complain, or we use the existing system to the best that we can, to the best extent that we can, and we use it to our advantage. The Chinese haven't cried and complained and blah ha ha boo hoo, right? They also have faced the same problems that we are facing, but they've done a very good job. And they are in such a powerful position today. So my point is, let's stop complaining and crying, and use whatever means exist to do something good for ourselves, and to advance our position in the world as a nation, as a civilization. And by the way, I have not seen this question before, so how can you say that I have not answered your question? I don't get it. Why are you complaining, sir, like this? I'm happy to answer questions the moment I see them. Geopolitical debate. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I always appreciate you very much, sir. Prathamesh Kadam, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Prathamesh Kadam says, have you watched Star Wars? Have I watched Star Wars? I've I was born in 1976, November. I first watched Star Wars sometime in the 1970s. I must have been 2 or 3 years old. So I walk into the theater with my dad and some other relative, and Star Wars has already started. We are slightly late. And what I see on the screen is this big gorilla. Okay, I'm a little kid. I'm 2 or 3 years old. And I'm like, yeah, gorilla, gorilla. It's actually Chewbacca, the big hairy creature, the Wookiee. But I was fascinated by Star Wars. I was captivated. I think that's what began my love affair with science fiction. I've watched Star Wars. I've watched it multiple times. I've watched it on the big screen. I've watched it on regular home TV screens. I've watched it on those box TV screens, CRT TV screens. I've watched it on big flat wall modern screens on all that. I love it. I haven't watched. I've even seen some of the new versions of Star Wars. Those stupid, idiotic recent Star Wars movies. God, I can't stand those. What? The one in which Han Solo's son kills him and that nonsense. Oh God, I like the original three. The first one was great. The New Hope one. The Empire Strikes Back was outstanding. Part three was kind of a funnier version, but it was okay. The redemption of Darth Vader and so on. So yeah, I have watched Star Wars. I have. Prathamesh Kadam, thank you very much. And once again, okay, I answered your question. Right, I got that. Harshit Jain says, how long can Iran fight back with Israel in the US? Well, that's a good question. Depends on how many missiles and all that they have, and whether they have nuclear weapons or not. Depends on that. If you want to fight a long war, you need supplies. You need thousands of missiles and drones. So it depends on that. And I'm not sure how many they have. Maybe they have lots, in which case they will last longer. And so on. So ideally, they would like to inflict a comprehensive military defeat on their enemy. And Israel also would like to inflict a comprehensive military defeat on Iran. So whoever is able to do that will end the war and prevail. That's how it goes. Sudhindra Desai says, what do you think is the right time to get married when you are a man with big ambitions? Is it even necessary to get married? Totally off topic. Okay. Is it necessary to get married? I think it's good to get married. It gives you stability in life. It gives you a support system as long as you have a good partner. So let's say you get a good partner and you're lucky. So what's the good time? What's the right time to get married when you're a man with big ambitions? I would say in your early 20s, before 25. Actually, that's what I would say. It's the right time for whether you are a male or a female. The right time to get married is before you're 25. And lots of people are going to disagree and put in the comments. Someday you'll understand. But yeah, the right time to get married is as early as possible. Get married, settle down, get the business of having children done as soon as possible, and then focus in your career and have that stability at home. Mugiwara says, if our country makes a mandatory law regarding army training for all the citizens, pros and cons, is there any thought ever given to this by our government? Okay, think about it. Let's say you have mandatory conscription in military service. Okay, let's say, hypothetically, in India. So it means that everybody has to mandatorily spend a certain amount of time in the military. Let's say 6 months or 1 year or whatever it is. What's our population? 1.4 billion. How many military age men become military age every year? A few million, right? Does the Indian Armed Forces have the bandwidth and infrastructure and capacity to absorb a few million boys every year and give them training for X number of months? I think if you try to do that, the Indian Armed Forces will be overwhelmed because we have so many young men becoming military age every year. It's not possible. It's logistically impossible because of the enormous size of the Indian population. The Indian military will be overwhelmed with this. You understand? Doesn't work for a country of the size of India. Govind says, according to you, which is the safest country in the world to live in terms of every kind of safety? Well, I don't know, but from my experience, I would say perhaps Switzerland. Even Switzerland has now immigration of various kinds, which is very sad. Used to be Japan. I would have said Switzerland and Japan. But I hear that Switzerland also is now facing immigration related criminal activity. And I hear that there are immigration issues in Japan also now. So I think the West wants to ruin the whole world, I think, by forcing immigration everywhere. The worst kind of immigration. But overall, I would still say it is Switzerland and Japan overall. If things stay the way they are, I think these two nations are still very safe. Apart from that, which other nations? 15 years ago, it would have been the Nordic nations, Sweden, Denmark, all of those. Those are scary now because of the kind of immigrants they've absorbed. Which other nation is super safe? Maybe Southern American nations. Maybe Argentina, perhaps. I don't know, perhaps. Okay, I personally haven't been there, so I can't really say. But one hears it's reasonably safe. Okay, Geopolitical Dubey says, Sir, what made you interested in aviation? As a kid, I was fascinated with aircraft. As a kid, like when I was like 1 year old, I was fascinated with aircraft. I wanted to fly. And I still remember the first time I was in an airplane. Oh my God, it was like a dream come true. Today, it's like you fly all the time. It's no big deal. But when I was a kid, it was a huge deal. My God, I am in an airplane. I'm going to be above the surface of the sky, of the planet, and so on. I was just fascinated with flying, with air flight, with aviation, all that. I probably think that my first ambition in life was to become a pilot of some kind, then an astronaut, and so on. So it's something that was always fascinating for me. So it's always been that way. And I was always interested in aeronautics, aerodynamics, and all that. I used to make various kinds of very complicated model aircrafts that could actually fly and glide and all that. And I was interested in rockets, rocketry, missiles, all that. So it's just part of who I am. Animesh says, how do you master playing guitar? Appreciate tips. Well, that's a good question, and it's a question I actually can answer. How do you master playing guitar? First of all, you have to decide whether you want to be a rhythm player or a lead player. Okay, rhythm is different, lead is different. Rhythm guitar means you're playing chords. A chord is a combination of multiple notes, minimum 3 and maximum as many as you want, as many as fingers you can accommodate, and you can play multiple notes at the same time, and so on. So you would first decide whether you want to be a rhythm guitarist or a lead guitarist, and you have to try both. And you to then you can figure out what you're more comfortable with or what appeals to you more. So let's say you've decided you want to be a rhythm player. Then you have to start practicing. You have a practice routine every day, X number of minutes. The more, the better. So let's say you can practice 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Well, that's not bad. You will make progress. But if you can practice 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, my God, you will make tremendous progress. It depends. And then you need to have a proper curriculum. Which chords do you want to practice? Once a certain set of chords, the basic chords, the bar chords or whatever, become easy and comfortable for you, then you have to go to more complicated chords, augmented chords and diminished chords and sevenths and fifths and whatever else, right? Those are jazz chords and pretty difficult chords to play, and then you have to incorporate that into your practice routine and all that. So that takes time. So you need to have a proper roadmap, which will typically extend several months, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. Once you reach there, then you need to have a daily practice routine, warm-up routine, and so on. If you want to be a lead guitar player, then you need to have a whole different approach to that. You need to start with various scales, and then you have to go to other scales. You start with the scale of C or G or whatever, and you measure, you master the entire fretboard. Then you start playing other scales like the Mixolydian scale, the Dorian scale. You can start practicing, experimenting with Indian ragas, for example, and so on. So you got to just keep experimenting, keep practicing. There needs to be a complete foundation for daily warm-ups and practice, and then on top of that, you need to start keep on learning something new every week, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty long journey. It's a lifelong journey, but it's really fun if you're into it, if you are musically inclined. I used to really enjoy playing the guitar. I still have guitars, but these days I don't get the time to play much. It's been a while since I played seriously, so I must sound like a beginner, I suppose, if I try now. But it's great fun. So yeah, enjoy. All the best. Black Hole says India isn't held back by China or the US, but It's held back by its own internal corruption at every level from top to bottom. India is a failed democracy, Chanakya said too. Um, I would agree with you that that the biggest problem that India faces today is corruption. No question about it. It's the root cause of almost every problem in India. Whether it is illegal immigration, whether it is whatever else, whether it is the rot in the education system, whether it is whatever else, the root cause is always goes back to corruption. So I agree. Corruption is the biggest problem in India today, and it's something that nobody wants to speak about. Right? Is India a failed democracy? I think I would not entirely characterize it as a completely failed democracy, but the current system is not helping India at all. We need a new system, a different system. I would agree with you. Big problems. If India has to reach its full potential, the current system can't do a thing. The current system will not take us where we need to be. I agree. Ganesh Guide says, what if Pakistan and Bangladesh don't open their borders for illegals? Look, most of our illegals are from Bangladesh, Myanmar, cookies, and a few Pakistanis. If the Pakistanis are not willing to go, we will see. But Bangladesh will have no choice but to open its borders. And the border with Myanmar is anyway open. So it's about the will of the government of India. If the government of India is willing to kick the illegals out, they will be out. There is nothing Bangladesh can do if we are sending the illegals back. If they try to do something, we know how to deal with the Bangladeshis, okay? And Myanmar will not pose any problem for us if we want to kick the illegal cookies out. So it's the only thing that's lacking, perhaps potentially, is the will of the government of India. The moment the government of India decides that they have to go, they will be gone in whatever amount of time. Rashikuddin says, should Sheikh Hasina be allowed to remain in India? Yeah, she should be allowed to remain in India. Yeah, she has been a friend of India's. She was a good leader for Bangladesh. She did not do any harm to anybody, and she actually put the economy of Bangladesh on a very good track, which is now being unraveled, and so on. So I would say yes, she should be allowed to remain in India as a guest. Aryan Jha says, what is it? What about climate change? 1.5C already crossed. Okay, what is 1.5C? And what about climate change? What is climate change 1.5C? I think it's the carbon levels in the atmosphere and all that. Climate change 1.5C. What is 1.5C? Oh, 1.5 degrees Celsius. The first 12-month average, the first 12-month period to exceed 1.5 degrees in average. Okay, you're talking about global warming. Yeah, so it's crossed and it's an ongoing issue, and there is absolutely nothing that will be done about this. Okay, climate change has two components. One is a natural component, one is a human mediated component. Natural climate change has always occurred, like we discussed earlier in this episode. Human mediated climate change is all because of pollution and the carbon emissions and all that, which is also true. Those who claim that there is no human component to it and all that is nonsense. But the point is, how do we stop it? We can't. The only way we can stop further climate change caused by humans is if all the governments in the world agree to do certain things, and nobody is agreeing, and nobody's going to agree. They will always prioritize their national interests. For example, they will say to India, cut down on carbon emissions by so and so percentage. We'll say, you have been emitting carbon into the atmosphere so many decades and centuries, and we need to catch up with you, otherwise we'll always be left behind. So we will not stop, and they can't force us to stop, and that's the deal. So it's never going to happen. Humanity will never unite, and it's going to keep on going. So that's all I can say about this. Okay, I'm going to do another 10 minutes, and that's it. Okay, so yeah, let's wrap this up sooner rather than later. Govind says, why is no one talking about what's happening in Sudan? But the UAE. Western media is not covering it because of UAE-US alliance. Is UAE closer to the US or China? Long term, which country is beneficial, etc.? The UAE is definitely closer to the US than to China. The UAE is also closer to India. What's happening in Sudan by UAE? I'm not aware of the UAE angle. Okay, I'm not aware of that. I know there's a disaster situation in Sudan. Is the UAE behind it? I'm not sure about that. It's true that the media, the media, Western media, Indian media is not covering what's happening in Sudan. Millions of people are displaced, and there is this humanitarian crisis. There's the infighting between two groups in Sudan. between the RAF and the Sudanese government and so on. They're fighting each other, and the civilians are caught in the crossfire, and there is no way of any aid reaching them, and it's a disaster. But who's behind this? Well, I'll have to look into it. Okay. Charles Oliveira says, strip John Duck Jones. Okay, I don't know what it means, but okay, sir, if you say so. Bradley says, there seems to be a direct correlation between difficult languages like Japanese and lower Islamic immigration. Also, Israel bombed the largest airfield in Iran. Is it so? Okay, fascinating. There seems to be a direct correlation between difficult languages like Japanese and lower Islamic immigration. No, Japan has always had this policy that is strongly against any kind of immigration. It doesn't have anything to do with languages. It's everything to do with the Japanese government's policy. It's not like because the Japanese language is so difficult, that's why fewer immigrants have gone there. The fact is that the Japanese government has always had this policy that we will allow tourists, but we will not allow immigrants. You can't settle in Japan. No, we don't want immigrants. But now somehow the policy seems to have changed, and we know that Japan is occupied by the US, and the US calls the shots. So maybe the Americans have decided that now we're going to open up Japan to immigration of certain kinds. So that's what's happening. Israel bombed the largest oil field. Okay, maybe it's breaking news. I'll look into it once this live stream is over. Thank you for letting us know. Sachin says, what I meant was Iran invested a major chunk of its oil revenue in ballistic missiles. Iran invested a major chunk of its oil, okay, nuclear program and its proxy militias, but Israel destroyed them all. Well, a nation's got to do what it got to do. Sometimes it works out for you, sometimes it doesn't. But at least they tried. They knew what enemies they have, and they tried. And you got to respect them for trying. If it worked, didn't work, well, that's up to the gods. Govind says, is Dubai a safe city to live in? What aspects of safety are lacking there that's not known to people or not covered in media apart from freedom of speech, PDA, alcohol, etc.? Well, I haven't lived in Dubai, so I can't say. But from what I hear, it's a pretty safe city to live in, I suppose. I think the UAE overall is a very safe place to live in. Very little crime, if any at all. Indians are respected. You have freedom of religion. Nobody's going to force you to do something or the other, any of that. And yeah, of course, there are going to be some restrictions. It's a monarchy. It's not a democracy. You've got to respect the local political system. You've got to respect the local rulers. You've got to respect the local laws. If you do that, nobody's going to bother you. Alcohol is available. Yeah, there's no restriction on alcohol. PDA, public display of affection. Well, it's not the norm in India. It's not the norm there. So what's the big deal? Is it something essential to living or what? If you want to do affection, do it at home, right? Why do you have to do it in public? Freedom of speech. Which nation has freedom of speech? So I think overall, the UAE is a good place for Indians to go to and live in, at least temporarily, as far as I know. But I personally haven't lived in Dubai, so yeah, do your own research, do your own due diligence if you're planning to perhaps potentially move there. Geopolitical Dubai says, can you fly planes? No, I have never been inside the cockpit of an aircraft. I don't know how to fly planes. Theoretically, I know how it works, but yeah, I don't have any training, none whatsoever. Chirag says, Israel knew Iran's top gen locks Operation Rising Lion. How have they not yet found location of their hostages? Israel knew the locations of Iran's top generals. How have they not found the location of their hostages in Gaza? Well, that's a question that Israel can answer, not me. How did they know the locations of Iran's top generals? Well, some people are saying that the Pakistanis, that the Pakistani fellow, what's his name, Asim Munir, he met Mohammad Bagheri, one of the Iranian top generals, and Asim Munir gave a gift to Bagheri, which is a wristwatch. And apparently the wristwatch had a tracking device which allowed Israel to pinpoint Mr. Bagheri's location, which would indicate that Israel and Pakistan are allies, if that's the case. Of course, I don't know if it's true, but that's something I saw on social media, just briefly. So maybe those hostages don't have those wristwatches that Israel can track. Perhaps that's the reason. Okay, I don't know. Paras Virdi says, why is there no change in education till now? Well, I'm not the person who can answer that question. It's the government of India that can answer that. We need an education system revamp. We need reforms, deep and wide and broad reforms in the Indian education system. What reforms? Well, I have laid it out in great detail in episodes 28 to 31 or 32 of the Ask Abhijit show. I'm not somebody who complains. I also give solutions. So I have given those solutions. But, well, nothing has been done. Well, it's up to the government of India. They're under no obligation to listen to me. But I would love to see some reforms because that's what the civilization needs. Rashikuddin says, do you hate Bangladesh? What do you think personally? I have absolutely no hate whatsoever for Bangladesh. Why would I hate Bangladesh? The people of Bangladesh genetically are my people. You people of Bangladesh are descendants of the ancient Vangadesh, which goes back thousands of years. Why would I hate the people of Bangladesh? The problem is the radicalization and the hatred for India that seems to be on the rise, and the hatred for Hindus that is demonstrable. So that's unfortunate. And that's something that needs to be addressed. Beyond that, let Bangladesh live its own life. We will not. I mean, I have no hatred for Bangladesh, just as I have no hatred for Pakistan. I know that Pakistan is our enemy. I know that the average Pakistani most likely wants people like Indians and Hindus dead. But it's also true that the most Pakistanis are also somehow related to me genetically and by blood. So I don't hate them personally. I would love them to have good lives, but I don't want them to be able to kill me. That's all I'm saying. And my people. So similarly with Bangladesh, I have no hatred for Bangladesh. Why would I have it? I would love to see Bangladesh prosper, the people do well, the country do well economically, etc. But just stop killing Hindus and stop hating us. What have we done to hate to deserve the hate? We gave you freedom. I don't know what your textbooks are teaching you, but without the involvement of the Indian armed forces, Bangladesh would have never been liberated in 1971. And the Pakistanis would have, I don't know what they would have done to your people. Okay, that's what I would say. Okay, we're going to take just a couple more questions and then we are done. How is India going to be like in terms of war situation? Who does India take as allies? All neighbors, China, Pakistan, USA against us. India doesn't have allies, which is fine. Nobody has allies. India doesn't have allies. Okay. Iran doesn't have allies. Nobody has allies that way. How is India like in terms of war preparations? I think India is on a good track. We have tremendous air defense capabilities. We have good offensive capabilities in terms of missiles. And I'm sure that we are focusing on Atmanirbharta and local defense protection and all. So I think we are on a very good track in terms of defense preparedness. Of course, we can do more. We can do more and all. And we should have a stockpile of tens of thousands of missiles of various kinds. That's what I've been saying. Apart from that, we have no allies. Our neighbors are very nasty. They are all puppets of other nations, and we have to be prepared for all eventualities. Sachin says, had instead Iran turned down the rhetoric, not sponsored militias, but stealthily worked on nukes, it would have in a few years been too powerful to be bombed. Well, there is some element of truth to what you're saying. Tone down the rhetoric, not sponsoring militias, no. It's always good to have proxies and allies of various kinds beyond your borders. And that's one trick in the book that India is missing. But do it in a very low profile way. And of course, had they worked on nukes and developed nukes, well, then it would have been very hard for anybody to cross their red lines, right? So yeah, I don't know if they have nukes. I still don't know if they have nukes. And what their nuclear doctrine is like in case they do have nukes. So yeah, it's all ifs and buts right now. Tanmay Pant says, why did Hitler fail in the Battle of Britain even after investing so much in the Air Force? What happened is that the Americans were supplying the British. So Hitler had this massive Air Force, but the British were churning out aircraft like sausages. They were churning out, there these production lines that were churning out Spitfires and whatnot all the time. And they were getting supplied by the Americans across the Atlantic. So that's why, despite being a small island, but the British were able to resist and withstand the German onslaught, the Blitzkrieg, by the German Air Force. And then Hitler somehow changed his mind and he turned his direction, turned his gaze to the USSR, and he broke the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and decided to launch Operation Barbarossa and did not do it very well. So Britain got that breathing space. So yeah, from Hitler's perspective, if he had finished the job, then things would have been different. But of course, Hitler is a very evil guy and a monster. So good, it didn't work out that way. Kumar Kanish says, I am an aviation enthusiast. I think a pilot's job is one of the hardest, and I can't imagine how tough it is. I feel, especially in India, people are not aware of. I suppose it is. It's a job with a tremendous amount of responsibility. It's a very complicated job. You're flying a very complex uh, vehicle. And yeah, most people don't understand how complicated and difficult it is. So, yes, I agree. Ritik says, I agree. India won't be united if it had not been colonized. India would not have been colonized if it was united, and so on. I agree. Right. So, okay, thank you very much, everybody. I am at the end of today's live stream. We are past 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's tremendously long. I think I'll need a drink of water or something else very soon. So, thank you so much, everybody, for all your questions. I really enjoyed this. And we're going to keep on doing this next week. So, until the next live stream, please keep questioning, keep asking questions, keep thinking critically, keep raising your standards, and I will see you in the next live stream. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.